Doing that. But you have seen through your activity briefings the record level of consents, and we have to process those in a timely and legal fashion, and therefore we do require sufficient resources to do that, either externally, either by asking consultants to do it, or by adjusting staffing levels to match.
I know what it was. I found it now, and it's got with the contributors into it. It's on page 5, and it's building regulation. So it's got 404, and it goes to 345,000. And then I'm just looking at and then I go down to personnel costs. I just got to get down to that now. What page was that on? Russell, help me here. Page 9. Officer fees and charges, and there's something in there about the I think I read something in
so as I'm reading page 4 in relation to the building, I still think the advice to do it when you get to the activity might be easier.
Right,
that shows a reduction in the rates requirement if you ignore the contributors.
Yeah. But we've got an increase in the other side of it.
Councillor Ellis.
Thank you. Some time ago we were given a business case for a new staff member for Lakehood, and then we were told that was going to get deferred to the annual plan, and I just don't see it mentioned in this part of this. Is it falling and going to fall out somewhere else in the budget, or?
It's covered specifically under the Parks and Open Spaces chapter.
Okay. Cool.
Parks and Open Spaces chapter.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Gordon. We'll go back to personnel. Any other questions on that? Councillor Cameron.
I have a comment to make on that. I don't think we can comment on that until we see where it all falls out,
sure.
As to Hamish's point.
Yep. Okay. We'll move on. General operating expenses, is that right?
Yep, sure. This is a really big number just because we're looking at the council's summary for 26-27. We have got $40 million budgeted in that account, that line item. It's basically the catch-all for everything else that doesn't fit into the cost lines that we've got, such as contracts and consultancy, finance costs, depreciation. So it catches everything else. So some examples of what are in there. Maintenance contracts account for $20.8 million, so basically half of that line item is around maintenance contracts. $3.4 million is coded to maintenance, $2 million for electricity, $1.3 million for rates expense, and $0.96 million for grants. The variances that you will see against each of the activities, you'll see those as we work through the activity packs, because we've got the same reporting lines, so you'll see where the changes fall out.
Councillor Cameron.
So under the maintenance contracts, that would include the roading maintenance contract, would
Absolutely,
it?
yes.
Okay.
Contracts and consultancy, we chose to report this line separately as well, just to give some transparency around it. For the 26-27 year, we've got $3 million in there. So this isn't contract, as in contractual, like the roading contract. This is contractors and consultancy costs, essentially. And it's for the non-CapEx costs. What we have included in this line this year has been the business cases. So where the business cases don't fall into CapEx, we have just put them in as a lump sum into this line item. So you will see in the areas where they do fall, as we work through the activities, they should stand out depending on the amounts. And the reason is the business case, and the business cases are attached into each of the activities as well.
Councillor Cameron.
With regards to consultancy, it's always an obvious one to talk about. Is consultancy in each of the groups as we go down? Will we see
Absolutely.
and there'll be a line, consultant personnel? X
You'll
amount of
see the
dollars.
same line, you'll see contracts and consultancy
Okay.
at both the group of activities level and the individual
And
activity
we'll be able
level.
to see what we spent on consultancy last year versus this year, because
Correct.
we
yes.
are employing more internal staff to reduce the impact of consultancy.
Yes,
as
so
I
the
understand.
the comparatives.
So we'll see that quite
will work,
clearly.
yes.
Okay, thank you.
Good. Thank you.
The finance costs, sounding like a broken record again, 3.8% is what we've budgeted. We've got an increase in interest itself of $0.8 million against the 2026 budget. Of that $0.8 million, $500,000 is in roads and 0.3 is in wastewater. So essentially the interest expense budget is being borne by those two activities.
Councillor Wilson.
Yes, the bridge one, because we've skirted across it a wee bit when it's been chucked in there, 20 million for next year. We had 7.5 million in as the total project cost. So obviously now we've put in, can you just drop, because that's driving, it's a big lump of debt that we're going to take on. And so, and from what we've heard and what we've seen, it starts in March. So once you start, you capitalise it to start with normally, and then when it's finished, you start paying it back or do whatever. So are we saying that in the next year from June to June in the coming year, we're going to have 20 million of bridge money spent? Or can you just perhaps just so...
That's exactly right. So the advice from NZTA is that we should provide 20 million in that year's budget. We have to do that by debt, and therefore we calculate, and on the basis of the calculation is 6 months, because we'll raise some money at the start of the year and some month at the end. And so we've calculated the interest payments or the repayments as half of the 20 million for half the year.
So will we see a breakdown of that effective project, and is there a breakdown of what the bridge is going to cost us, so we can clearly say X dollars paid, and this is what it's going to cost us over the project, including all the costs, so that everybody's very clear as to what this bridge is costing.
Yep, so we haven't seen that yet, and I know you haven't seen that yet. We are expecting in the next couple of weeks to have a presentation from NZTA on exactly that. But we still know from their advice that in that year we will need to provide 20 million. But the final number has not been confirmed. For the purposes of this budget, we think it's sensible to take the number they have suggested to us. If the total cost of the road was to be less than that and that number needs to change, then clearly we'll reflect that. But that's the number that they suggest we provide for in the financial year that we're talking about.
My final comment, so effectively we're saying if it's 20 million, we're spending it half and half, so that's 10 million average for the year at 5% is 500,000. Is that pretty much the basic maths? Whereas in the next year, if it was 20 million, it would be $1 million. It would be double that. Is that a fair comment to make? So if we looked forward 2 years out, we'd be, instead of 500,000, we'd be looking at $1 million effectively, if the numbers.
From memory, it'll be more than $1 million, because in 2028 you will have a principal repayment against the 20 million, and 12 months of interest, not 6.
Councillor Cameron.
On the matter of the bridge, since the gate's been opened, and my question was about that 20 million. So we're anticipating, NZTA have said you're looking at $27 million for that road. If we put in 7.5 already.
This is a funding question. So we had 7.5.
Yeah.
But what we know we need to do is raise new debt of 20 million in the
Okay.
financial year. So how do we respond to that obligation? So it's not related to the total cost as directly as that.
And they haven't assigned, as I understand, or I haven't seen it come here, their contractor yet for doing that bridge, have they? They haven't.
They're negotiating with a preferred contractor. What hasn't happened yet is we haven't seen the final costs nor seen the absolutely final design. So that's what's coming in the next few weeks.
And we need to put some, and this is another question that's off topic, but the bridge gate's been open and we're discussing it. We need to make sure that really validate those costings and that they're reasonable costings, because we don't want another transmission gully, for example, or anything else. We need to make sure that the costings of the bridge, and I don't know who, does that come to council? Like, how are we gonna, we may need to get them reviewed or whatever. We just can't accept them as they are. If they're 50 million or whatever they're gonna be, you know.
So we have contracted NZTA to procure this project.
Yes.
So they are the ones charged with confirming the design, appointing the contractor and advising us of the cost. Our piece that remains is that we always reserve the right for the final approval of the design of the road. So that needs still to happen, and our roading team is well aware, and I assume NZTA are well aware that we get to approve the final design of the road. The price will be the agreed price between the contractor and our procurement agent, NZTA. So we don't have the ability to dive into that per se. Our opportunity to be involved in the final decision is as per the design of the road.
Okay, I have asked for that contract and I've been told it hasn't been signed. So as I understand, we've signed a contract to do the design work and to negotiate on our behalf with their preferred contractor. Is that correct? Is that what you've told me?
I'm not sure about the signature. I'll have to
building,
check that.
yeah.
We agreed by council resolution to contract NZTA to procure this work.
Yes, yes. So when it comes back, if we feel that it's expensive or
Change the design of the road.
we can change the design of the road, we can go back and say we would like to change the design of that road. That's our lever.
Yes.
Okay.
Acknowledging that the road and the bridge have to be fit for purpose.
Oh, absolutely. The bridge is not. The bridge is.
So is the road. The road has to connect
Yeah.
to the bridge.
Okay, and you have not seen. This is not a rhetorical question. It's a question. Have you seen the final design of the bridge? Have we of the road? I beg your pardon. We haven't seen that across here yet, have we? No.
No.
So we will wait for that, and that's inspected in the next 1 or 2 weeks. Is that correct?
We have seen a lot of design work.
Yes, we have.
And council have seen a lot of design. So you know what the road is going to look like, and you know that the road is going to be fit for purpose and it's going to connect to the bridge. What you haven't seen is the absolute final design nor the final cost.
And we'll get them both at the same time, will we?
We're expecting that, as I say, within the next couple of weeks. And there's some sessions in your diary with NZTA representatives to talk to you about those things.
I think we might, have we finished the finance costs? I think before we go into depreciation, we might actually break for lunch, if that's okay with you down the end there, and back here at 1 o'clock. Thank you. annual plan workshop. So we got partway through this, so we'll hand it back to you, Helen. I think we're on depreciation.
We
Is that
sure are.
right?
Thank you. So as referred to earlier, excuse me, depreciation isn't a cash cost, but it's something we're required to record in our financial statements. So the 2027 budget for depreciation is $24 million. That's an increase of $3 million on the 2026 annual plan. That doesn't go straight onto rates. Remember, it's just an accounting entry. The increase, sorry, my numbers here, sorry, is 0.8 million, 800,000 above the 2025 actual. So you may recall earlier in terms of us preparing the 2027 depreciation budget, I said we looked at what our depreciation expense was for 2025, and then we put the lift on for our new assets that go through for 2026. So comparing the $24 million that we've budgeted for 2027, it's only $800,000 higher than the actual for 2025. Sorry, getting my years confused. Unfunded depreciation. So this is what impacts on how much cash funding we do actually raise to pay for our renewals, and this is something new. So when you look at the comparatives for 25 and 26, you won't see this in the financial statements, but you'll most definitely see it where appropriate in 2027. So the sum of the depreciation expense line that you'll see in the statements plus the unfunded depreciation will tell you exactly how much depreciation we are funding within an activity. So the sum of the two tells you how much cash or how much funding we're raising to pay for our renewals. So in terms of the summary level, depreciation sitting at $24 million, as I just referred to. Unfunded depreciation is at $9.1 million. So we're funding $14.9 million depreciation in 2027.
Just go to a question from Councillor Cameron.
Thank you. So that is per category or per cost centre?
Activity.
Yeah.
Yep.
So if you were depreciating a tractor, can you then spend it on a lawnmower?
Yep.
Oh, you
Yep.
can. So it's
Yep.
in the activity, so it doesn't have to be
It's not
device for device.
per asset. No.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Yep. So in terms of our funded depreciation, I just mentioned 14.9 million dollars. Our renewal program that's proposed through the annual plan is $14.7 million. There are variances across each of the activities. So in some activities we're spending more, and some we're spending less and putting money into the reserve. But in terms of looking at an overall picture for council, we're funding what we are spending. The direct distributed costs, that's 2.7 on page.
Sorry, I'll just go
Yeah,
to,
just what is the shortfall or the early spending in the water department? Because we're obviously, you've alluded to it there, so we've got 24 in total, 9 unfunded, which we're funding depreciation of 14.
Yep.
But in the wastewater, we've got a negative depreciation there effectively. So what is that number? Because if we add that number back in, it effectively gives us the rest of how bad or how far we're underfunded. Because I understand the wastewater one, it was doing it. We've tried to take advantage of good rates now, so a bit of that's happening.
Water and wastewater off the top of my head together are about 3 mil, but we can come to that when we go through the activities. The numbers are there.
Yep.
Yep. The direct distributed costs, I think I probably already referred to that, but just to allude to, this is essentially general operating costs. So it's largely salaries and costs associated with running multiple activities that are captured into one bucket and then pushed out to the activities that it really belongs to. There's 3 cost centres essentially that sit in direct distributed costs. That's infrastructure. So essentially Neil's team, his engineers, his water people, they all live within one cost centre, and those costs are pushed out to the respective activities. We've also got the property and the parks team that operate in a similar way. So the purpose of that was to pull those costs out of overheads, because quite clearly those operations aren't core overheads, and we're probably blurring how we saw overheads being landed into each of those activities. The other half of what we used to see as internal charges and overheads remains in internal charges and overheads. That's listed under 2.8. So that's the core costs of business support, executive team, treasury, rates, information systems, plant and vehicles, te whare whakatere, human resources, strategy and policy, customer services and communications. And when we look at the miscellaneous activity, you'll actually see the report for each of these levels. These are actually a level lower. These are what we refer to as cost centres, which is the level that you saw everything at for the last annual plan. But we have provided these because these are quite unique overhead areas, just so that you get visibility across those.
Just a question. In the past, we've always, it's always been referred to the overheads as kind of a waterfall system. Is that,
It hasn't changed.
That hasn't changed. Okay, so even though you're talking about the buckets and everything, the waterfall system still, yeah.
Yeah, that waterfall or cascade system simply acknowledges that some overhead activities get services from other overhead activities. So you can't have an endless loop going round and round. You have to have a system that drops through. So you have a measured way of starting at the top, and the last group gets its share of everything, and others get a share of those above it. We reviewed the overhead allocation system probably 5 or 6 years ago now, I think, and particularly as we established the internal business unit and ring fencing costs, we think that there is a piece of work coming up as to how we examine the overhead allocation cascade as being fit for purpose going forward. But for the purposes of this annual plan, we're using the system as it has been developed some years ago. It is a piece of work that does generate a lot of discussion and immense a range of perspectives on who's getting what from who and who should be paying. But in the end, we have to spread the costs, and we need to just come to a sensible way of doing that that is broadly acceptable.
Thank you. And does that, is that decided by the Revenue and Finance Policy, or is that a different?
It's a separate piece of work.
Okay.
How we allocate the overheads.
Yeah.
And the motivation, of course, is for particularly budget managers to still get access to their same gross budget, but to have less overhead so they can have leeway to do work inside that activity. But in the end, the organisation as a whole has to take an approach that's broadly fair to everyone.
Richard, did you have a question? No, you're right. Okay. Right.
All right. In regards to capital expenditure, so the budget currently includes $54.2 million of capital expenditure anticipated in 26-27. This is a $17.8 million increase compared to the current financial year. It is worth noting that of this $54 million, that $20 million is attributed to the bridge straight away. So it's definitely a large portion of the increase. In terms of the CapEx, at the moment, it's currently categorised into growth, level of service and renewal. You'll see this in the individual activity reports as we go through each of those. In some instances, the exact split between these is not fully captured. So think of the breeding program as an example. As we work through the year, some of it's CapEx and some of it's operational. So that sort of information will flow through as we sort of progress. And we're hoping to bring more information in regards to that as it's sort of finalised and fully known. On the screen at the moment, you can see that there is a pie chart, which is just indicative of where the spend or the capital spend actually goes. And in line with the comment in regards to $20 million on the bridge, you can see the biggest portion in the purple is the transportation part of the pie chart.
These next few slides just talk about some of the core key projects for the 26-27 year. We won't drill into these in detail because we'll probably go through them as we work through the activity groups. But obviously drinking water, wastewater, stormwater, key focus, and they reflect what's included in the water service delivery plan. I don't think there's much more we need to go on that one, and these are some of the other projects, obviously the bridge or the road, 2AB road, and ongoing road renewals, rehabilitation, implementation of FOGO and some other smaller projects. So I mean, in terms of overall, I mean, essentially the big five, I guess, including waste, encompass around 90% of your capital projects at least.
So we're going to go into detail.
Yeah,
and
they're
talk
all
more
covered
about it
in each of the different
Yeah.
groups that we'll all draw into.
In the water, the Three Waters side of things, because that's in our water services delivery plan.
Yep.
They're almost a given in the budget. We can't, I think we kind of had sort of informal chats about this before, but we can't defer it or push it out a couple of years because it's been ticked off in that plan.
That's right. Broadly, well, very simply, the water service delivery plan, council's approved, we consulted the community, and the government has signed it off. So that's the process we've already followed for the work in the water services delivery plan. As previously reported, there are one or two projects that require a little bit of extra time to design and plan, and so they have moved from year 1 to year 2 of the water service, or year 2 to year 3, whatever the right years are. But we've brought forward other work to substitute, if you like. So, and in terms of the impact on rates, we have plugged in the rates charge, targeted rates charge as per the water system delivery plan into the annual plan. So the charge to the consumers of those services is exactly as we have previously consulted and approved by the government.
Councillor Ellis.
Thank you. And even though those projects are in the water services delivery plan, when we go to tender for a project, irrigation at Ocean Farm, for example, that'll still come back to council though for approval of that budget, or now that or has that been pre-approved and we don't have to look at it again?
Oh, the contract tender approval process still sits within the delegated authority rules that we have. So over a certain level, those contracts still need to be finally signed off by council. But the work itself is programmed to continue as per the plans we have.
And finally, this just shows some of the projects that have either been removed through previous decisions or have been deferred, like the West Street trunk. So that's one of the water service delivery plan that's been moved out a year. And obviously the big change has been the inclusion of the bridge funding. And the note there in terms of what was included on the LTP, so in the LTP we included the whole cost of the bridge and the road, which was to be funded, I think by subsidy was the assumption at that point. But that's why there's such a difference between LTP and year 3.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson.
It probably carries on from this. Is there a list of ones that were put in and taken out? Because that's perhaps one of the failings we've had in the past, that we've had 20 or 50,000. There was some things done that the councillors saw and thought, well, what the hell did we do that for? But it was in the long-term plan, and they not sneak through, but is the word almost that they do sneak through because they're in the long-term plan. And by the time we've got to year 3, we didn't actually want to do them now because circumstances have changed. And so, I understand that you've taken some out, but there must be a list of what's in and what's out effectively.
Yes, I think I understand your question. the long-term plan projects approved only automatically apply in year one. So the annual plan is year one of the long-term plan. By the time you get to year two, which was last year, that is redone through the annual plan. So if the project is in that annual plan, then we regard it as approved by council and we get on with it. I think that the issue referred to as visibility of some of the smaller pieces of work that perhaps have a high public profile and you weren't aware that they were about to happen, but they have been approved. They've all been approved. They're not sneaking through from an LTP. They're approved by the annual plan. What we have agreed, and particularly we hear this comment a little bit around open spaces, more perhaps than other activities, and we have agreed with the GM, Tony, and the Mayor that we will give some visibility to work that's about to start in the community via some communication mechanism with you, so that you're at least aware. But we're not re-seeking approval. If you've approved it through the annual plan, then we deem that as council approval, and we've rated and structured the finances for that work to occur, and so we will get on with it. So the visibility, however, can catch councillors by surprise, and that leaves you a little bit shortchanged with community comment. So we're going to fix that.
Just to confirm what you've just said, Hamish, so they're contemplated in the long-term plan and then approved in the annual plan
For years 2 and 3.
for years 2 and 3. So we actually are approving them now, so that they might be in there, but we're approving them now. So if they sneak through, it's our fault because we've approved them. Is that correct?
I'm not saying fault, I'm just saying that
Well,
from a staff point of view, we
Yes.
take it that if it's in the plan and it survives whatever process we go through, then it has been approved.
So it'd be wise to look at that long-term plan to ensure that I know everything that was in the long-term plan in year 3.
So just to be clear, I mean, all that comes through in the group summaries. So we've got a list of all the capital projects that have been pulled through from year
Okay.
3 of the long-term plan.
Councillor Cameron.
I may well be jumping ahead. Where would I find things like climate change? You know, we did the recent climate change policy and everything was deferred until today or tomorrow. Where is that in this?
There's a
Production.
business case at the end of the miscellaneous one.
Okay, miscellaneous. So all the things I can't see, presumably, sensibly, are under miscellaneous. Pretty much.
Not necessarily.
I think that the broader answer is that as we continue to lead you through the information you have,
Sure.
by the end of that process, you should know where it is and
Okay.
what it means.
Righto.
And if you've still got questions because you haven't seen it or you don't understand it, that's when
Okay.
those sort of questions
Yeah.
would be really valuable.
Because miscellaneous is 44 pages, so it must be one of the longer departments. Thank you.
So in terms of business cases, so in the memo, I think there's a summary of the business cases overall and the ones that have been included at this point and declined. So just for full
Okay.
transparency.
Thank you. You good, Carolyn?
Oh, yeah, beg your pardon, sorry.
So I guess we're sort of at the end of the whole of council, but is there any other questions on that document at this point that you want to cover off?
So on our, on Stella, we've got on our page 13, we've got the budget report, council summary. So you'll go through that, or is that just there for our information?
I think it's best that it's there for your information, for you to take away and digest. The numbers that are on there are what we have referred to in the front section of the summary.
Okay.
So the words support, or the numbers support the words that you have there. So when we talk about things like loans raised, loan repayments, the rates, the numbers all align.
Right.
Yep.
Okay.
And if you're thinking about the expenditure, this is where you see the numbers that Helen and Gordon referred to around personnel costs, the general operating expenses, contracts and consultancy, finance depreciation, and the two categories of overhead. So this is where those numbers play out at the organisational level that we've just been discussing what they mean.
Thank you. Right. Where would you like us to go now?
Okay, team. So now we are proposing that we head into the actual group of activities. We are proposing that we work through this list. If you go on to Stella, your next document from A is B, and that is drinking water. And so we just propose to work through those. We haven't gone and boiled up the summary because we actually think probably we're looking at a page-by-page turn and an explanation from us and of where the key changes are to do that as we work through, so that
Okay.
it has the time to do that.
Councillor
Can I just
Wilson.
clarify that? So I understand what we've done so far, now we're working through them, but we can't make decisions today because we're looking at them, and you can't expect us to make too many comments because we're looking at them blindly, and the new people especially are looking at them for the first time ever. And it's particularly hard to form an opinion when you're just opening it for the first time.
Completely agree. We are still working through the budget pack for knowledge and information, and we wouldn't expect decisions or alterations to flow until you have a feel for the whole budget and what the implications are of the any suggested changes. So again, we're just continuing to work through, so that hopefully by the end of this first day's session, you'll have a really strong understanding of how the budget's structured, where the increases and decreases are, where the funding pressure is, and where the big rocks are compared to things of less impact. So we're continuing the process we've started.
Councillor Cameron.
Thank you. Looking at the funding approach from the revenue and financing policy for the drinking water, the most significant amount is paid by the group, like we all belong to the club, as we say, is that. And then we've got up to 5% variance. Is that the extra? Who would be on that? Can you give me an example of who would be on that variance?
So we just have to dive into that revenue and financing policy, but the group is all our water supplies essentially, excluding Montalto.
So who's getting the fees? I understand that, but who's getting the fees and charges?
Thank you. So fees and charges, they're paid for by connections. If you go to the to page 6,
Oh, okay.
you'll
I'm
see
on
that
that
there's
page 2.
fees and charges sitting there, and so there's water sampling, there's also around service connections.
Like new connections to the scheme, if you
Yes.
like development costs and stuff.
If you've got a property that you have just had as an empty section and then you go and actually connect your house
Okay.
onto it, you'll pay for that. Yes.
Okay.
So that's charged through a fee and charge.
Okay.
It's not charged through the rate.
Right. So this essentially, the water charge, drinking water charges essentially do not fall on the rural ratepayer because the rural ratepayer does not have access to the drinking water schemes. So they fall on the
Correct.
urban, they're a targeted rate on the users.
It falls to those people who are connected to the service.
Yep, that's right. Thank you.
Right, Councillor Ellis.
Thank you. Just
Carolyn, I'll get you to turn your light off, thank you.
Just with that service connection for water and its the price it is, does that include putting a meter on at that time? Because I thought that all new connections were going to have a meter, and it didn't seem a lot if there's a meter included in that price. That was all.
I don't know the answer to that, but I'll go and find out.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll hand it back to the top table with the, I guess we're going through group structure, funding approach, etc. Is that right?
Yes, it is. If we go back to page 3 of the drinking water document, you'll see the group structure there, how it fits within the long-term plan, the funding approach, which we've already discussed, so those who receive the service pay for the service, and also you'll see the list of the water schemes that we've got throughout the district. From an overview perspective on page 4, that's talking about where the ups and downs are coming in when you look at the total income, total operating expenses, etc. I do want to draw your attention to the fact that we've got a business case here to consider, which is the addition of $150,000 to get some operational work done in and around water safety plans. I think from the top of my head. That's also attached at the back of this document. We can work you through that. CapEx is higher than what we had proposed in the than what was in the water service delivery plan, and primarily that's due to the Montalto project being brought forward from 27-28. And there's been some other changes in and around the CapEx, which you can see in the tables as we get there, around reprioritisation of water main renewals. I think that the take-home number is that the total rate take, the impact of the drinking water activity on the total rate take is 2.39%.
I
Hamish?
think, there's just a way of thinking about the scale of the number, because to the point just raised, not every ratepayer gets these services. So it is not a 2.39% increase on everyone's rates bill. That's just a way of describing the overall number and the way in which it contributes to the overall increase of 10.2. But clearly for those people who are connected to those services, the water rates increase is greater than that number.
Thank you. Councillor Ellis?
Thank you, and I see this as one that's just sticking with the 2.2 increase for fees and charges. So obviously they're comfortable with that. They don't think there's any area at all within that cost centre that needs a tweak.
On discussion with the team, there may be an option in and around trade waste under the wastewater area. I've just got an update from Andy. He's watching and he's given me an answer to the question asked. So the new connection is only the application fee. The applicant pays the full cost of installation, and that includes a requirement for a smart meter.
Councillor Wilson?
I looked at the water service delivery plan. I've obviously got an old one because it had 737 in 24-25 and it went up to 919 in 26-27. Can you just confirm that I'm wrong in the water services delivery plan?
Sorry, are you referring to OPEX, CAPEX, or?
Oh, I'm just trying to work my head around that one. That's why we're reading numbers and we're trying to understand them on the hop. So that's why I'm quite hard to. So I'm looking there, it told me 737 is the number. If I read the front, the current average drinking water charge will be
That's in the
737.
overview. Is that what you're talking
It's the
about in the
overview, yeah.
overview there? Yep.
So from that, that's 737 is the number I'm going to be charged if I'm connected. And I thought in the water service plan it was higher than that in year 3 and 26-27.
We'll double check that.
And I think I'm getting charged, I checked my rates bill, $741.50 currently. Would that be correct? No, doesn't seem right. Okay. Do we need to come back for that? Yeah.
Team are looking at it right now,
Yeah,
so we'll get an
okay.
answer as soon as we can.
Yeah.
We can carry
No,
on.
that's good. How do you want to do it? Do you want to go through this overview expenditure? What's the easiest way of going through each of these?
I think
You haven't got them up on screen, we're just looking at them on our
I think
screen.
it's best to keep
Yeah.
looking at it here so we don't miss something that might be pertinent.
Okay.
I think probably to draw your attention to, I think CAPEX is going to be worth looking at, because that's where we'll see what the list of projects was as per the water service delivery plan and what the changes are looking like. And also then I also think the business case. The business cases are all included in the budgets that you're seeing right now. So if a business case weren't to be successful in the end, that money would be coming out. So just so we're all really clear when they made it to this.
On page, subsection 4.2, Tony, is that right?
Yeah, I think it would be helpful, because we've only just looking at this information for the first time, is to maybe just go through each page, and then if there's some explanations, and then if there's any questions, we can go there, rather than kind of skipping through the whole document. I'll go to Councillor Wilson for a question.
Oh, no, sorry.
Oh, yeah, okay. So we're now on page 3, 4.2 capital expenditure. Are there any comments from you down that end? No? Tony?
I was just going to draw your attention under Ashburton, where it's got water main renewals. You'll see that we're proposing to spend less in the annual plan 26-27 to what was proposed in the water service delivery plan. And that's because there has been a reprioritisation to spend that money up in Methven for the water main renewals that the team have decided need to happen sooner rather than later.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Wilson?
Under the water reticulation upgrade at Montalto, this has been an ongoing talked about, and we've been talking at doing individual house ones, and there's a trial going on, but we've never seen or heard of a number chucked out like this. There's a 3 million to rebuild the whole thing, but this is a number that's I can't get what it is even.
So I think to interrogate that in great detail, we do need the budget managers here. So the intention of working today through this budget material was to understand how it's laid out rather than to explain from the budget manager every project. But we will be able to do that for you. We'll be able to describe why it is 1528. But we don't have the budget managers on standby for today because we were trying to really work through the structure of it and highlight things that might need further interrogation from you. So there's one that we will need to do that, but it wasn't the intention to explain that fully today. The impression we're trying to leave, or the knowledge that you now have, is that there is money in this next year's budget for the Montalto Water Supply at 1.5 million. What that's to do and how it's made up and what that project looks like, we will need to circle back to.
Councillor Cameron.
Thank you. Through the chair, so that means that has been does that mean it's been brought forward in the water services delivery plan from 27-28 to, beg your pardon, from 27-28 to 26-27? Is that what
Yes, it's been brought forward from the water services
Yeah, it's in the delivery
into
plan
an
for
earlier
27,
annual
20.
plan. Yes.
And why has that, do we get to see why that has been brought forward? I thought from that earlier conversation, and things have been deferred from the water services delivery plan. And if Ulrich needs to be here, I will wait. But I don't understand how things can be jiggled around when I heard earlier that things were fixed.
So there are only 2 or 3 projects where this applies. So this is not a free-for-all and we are ignoring the water services delivery plan. We cannot get the West Street reticulation work completed engineeringly and design and contracting-wise in the year that it's in the plan. So we can't physically do it. So and that's been previously reported to council and to the community. We're going to design it in that year, and the work is programmed for the year after.
So
To compensate for the fact that that's being pushed out, and knowing full well that we have other work still to do, we have brought corresponding work forward.
Okay, so I have 2 questions. Do we need to compensate for that, is my question number 1. And the question number 2 is, will this come to the Water Services Delivery Committee for discussion?
There's a meeting next week.
But the last Water Services Committee discussed that. So it's already been highlighted, and I remember...
Was there a motion as a result of that?
In the end, the resource allocation is via the budget process. So this is the process, not necessarily today, but this is the process where the money gets approved. But I know we talked about it at the last committee meeting because it was a story that was published in The Guardian explaining it all. So we've talked about it, we've highlighted it, and we're now simply giving effect to the resource allocation.
I understand, and
Yes.
I was probably at that committee because I am on that committee. So I accept all that, but was there a motion, and is this did we discuss putting it in this year's budget, and was it moved that it was discussed in this year's budget?
This is the budget meeting. So this
Yeah,
is...
but we haven't got, did we, I'll let Russell talk.
Again, my memory's no
Sorry
better
about
than
that.
yours.
I don't think there was, is my point.
Oh, fine. There's a water service delivery meeting next week where a lot of these questions can be answered at that. And the minutes of the last meeting will be out on Friday, so we'll be able to have a look at exactly what was said.
We think one of the prime commitments that this council made to both its community and to the government was doing the appropriate amount of work to meet the standards, and that it was going to need this level of rates to do it. And the water charges were laid out in the water services delivery plan. So when we come across a piece of work that had to be delayed due to design limitations, but that we've already committed to the level of rates via the previous process, that we have been able to bring a piece of work forward to fit in where one needed to be delayed. So that's all we're doing. The rate charge that we consulted on and was approved by the government and council remains the same.
And this project's far cheaper than originally forecasted, around $6 million, I think it was, for some
Yeah.
independent water scheme basically for those users, whereas now we've gone to a different approach, working in conjunction with Te Whatu Arawai, and yeah.
There's been an awful lot of work done on these mixed rural supplies by Te Whatu Arawai. We've been in the room a lot, talking with them and trying to develop an acceptable solution for those connected to that supply that will meet the regulatory requirements of Te Whatu Arawai. And as Councillor Wilson referred to, there's a trial going on. I think I read that the first 1 or 2 properties have been agreed to and potentially connected to that trial, and so this will dictate whether this piece of work is exactly what's needed.
And I'm just looking at the long-term plan now, and Montalto had combined just over 4.5 million from years 4 to 11. So
Just to cut to the chase,
Yeah.
though, so the 15th, if there's 100, I'm not sure, it's 100 households, or is it 35 households?
34.
34 households at $45,000 a household to sort that supply out. I'm sure our community would be making sure that the councillors have understood it and approved it. That's what I want to be able to do.
100%.
So
100%.
and that will come to when? When will we see the...
So council's firstly, council's this is a public supply. Council is the supplier of water to those people. So it's a public supply. Council has obligations for it to conform and be safe as per the water regulations. That's why we're discussing a solution with Te Whatu Arawai. That's why it needs to be appropriate for the supply and to meet regulatory standards. And that's why there's a trial to see if whatever is proposed actually does the job, and Te Whatu Arawai would be satisfied that this solution meets council's regulatory requirements.
And as the governors of that entity, which we are the governors of it, I would expect us to, if we're approving a $1.528 million budget, we would have seen the business cases, seen the design, understood what it is, so that then we as governors, we the council, are making a sound decision.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
when will we make that? When will we see that and make that decision?
So I'd say that through this budget process, you will need to get the information you need to be able to see that. So we're making a note that we have to bring a budget manager in to give you the information you need to approve it. What this is doing, what today's trying to do, is show you that we are providing that amount of money to give Montalto the water supply that meets the regulations. To further interrogate what is behind that number needs to have different people in the room and further conversation.
So what is the purpose of the water, Russell's is chair of, what is the purpose of that then? If we're going to approve it now, for the rest of the year, what are they going to approve? Are they going to, it's in the budget, if you're going to do it. So what's the point of us having meetings?
So
We're not the governors.
the Water Services Committee is to ensure, amongst other things, council complies with the regulations. This council is the one who approves resource allocations, i.e. budget. So that committee cannot approve a budget, but they can be satisfied that the proposal meets council's obligations as a water supplier, and then but it flows into the budget process just like every other budget. It's a little bit akin to the various plans and strategies that we have that council adopts until the budget resource is allocated. Then there isn't the money there to do that work. So council approves the budget, but the Water Services Committee should be satisfied that it meets regulatory compliance.
Okay. Water meters. So were they always in our plan for year 3 of the long-term plan? Or had they been brought forward with the water services delivery plan?
They're in the Water Services delivery plan for this year. I'm just
Right.
not sure where they were sat in the LTP.
I think they were out for year 4 and beyond. I think we made the call for the 24 LTP development that was not going to be in the next 3 years.
Okay.
So Water Service Delivery Plan brought them forward in that thinking.
Right. Thank you. Councillor Cameron.
Have the Rakaya water meters all been finished and all on?
So what's happening right now is part of the community has got the water meters rolling through right now, and what is funded here, what is proposed in this budget will be the remainder of Rakaya.
For Rakaia?
For Rakaia.
No, that can't be.
No, that's not right. We put that money
I think
aside.
the rollout of water meters again is a matter for the water services
Yeah.
So
committee.
they were free in Rakaia, but not the putting in.
Ask the question on Wednesday.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because but my point I'm trying to get at is, will we achieve the water meter rollout when they're in the plan? That is the point I'm trying to
That
get
is
at.
our intention, yes.
Yeah, because I think,
Make sure you ask it again on Wednesday.
yeah,
Yeah, I agree with Carolyn. If we've got 3.5 million in there for the water meter rollout, if we're not going to achieve that,
We are planning to achieve it.
Yeah, good.
We are sitting here saying that's what we'll do.
okay. Councillor Wilson.
And as part of you planning to do it, I would like to see that there's stuff around that what we're going to, who we're doing it with, when we're doing it, how we're doing it, because that's what a governor would need to see. We can't just say, yep, 3.5 million, yep, done. And that's, I'm concerned that's what you're saying. Once we approve this, it's done, and the Water Services Committee is just going to be looking at the regulatory,
So the budget is not done until you complete the budget process and adopt an annual plan.
Yep.
That's when the budget's done, is when you adopt the annual plan. So the Water Services Committee, so we're trying to frame up a budget, we're trying to show you the things that are in, the things we're making provision for. The interrogating of that can either be done through a process like this, and then we need to bring budget managers in and have a very different approach to day one, which is always intended to be an education around how it's structured and what's in there. Or the Water Services Committee, in the case of water, can question the relevant managers to be satisfied that that is the right approach and what you're getting for that money. This is just trying to create provision for resource across the whole organisation.
Councillor Cameron.
so, okay, just to backtrack a little bit, we're still putting in the Rakaia meters, which were given to us on a free basis, but the input, putting them in the ground or putting them on the pipes was not free. So there must be a scarcity of,
I can't answer these questions, I'm sorry.
no, it's not a question, it's a statement.
I'm just saying that the person who can answer your statement isn't in the room.
Okay, so we bring, so I'll carry on, because I have some questions around resource is there the resource available? So then we'll bring that up at the Water Services Delivery Committee, and I'll ask that question, and then where does it go from there then? If it's next Wednesday, Water Services Delivery Committee.
I'll go to Tony.
Sorry,
Yeah.
my phone a friend Andy's just commented. We're currently progressing a trial at the moment, but it's only on the east side of Rakaia. We still need to do the remainder, which is what's in the draft budget.
Okay, so in here now is only Rakaia money?
No, if you look at the table, there are subheadings. So under Ashburton, starting at the top of the
I
table,
haven't
under
gone further
Ashburton.
down, I'm just looking at water meter rollout.
So water meter rollout, we've got 3.5 million for water meter rollout for
Yeah.
Ashburton.
Yeah, I
And
can't
then,
see that. Where's that, Tony? What page?
Page 4.2, page 5 of the document.
Oh, yes, oh, yeah. 4.2, page 5, okay.
Third row down
Yeah, I can see that, but I can't see where it says Ashburton.
at the top.
Oh, right, okay.
And then, so under other supplies, that's where the Rakaia water meter money is sitting at the bottom of the
Okay,
table.
so so that doesn't change my question, thank you for the clarification. But essentially what it means is it goes to the Water Service Delivery Committee, we ask the staff or whomever's available to ask, is this feasible, can we achieve this realistically? They'll say yes, we say, okay, let's go ahead, or they say no, we say, well, we don't want to put it in the budget, and then it goes
I've
to
put it
council.
in the
They
budget.
won't say no. These are their numbers. This is
Yeah.
their work program from our asset management plans, from our,
Okay,
there's a
Councillor,
lot of history.
Councillor Gilkinson.
I just want, to clarify what the process is here, because I'm a wee bit confused, Hamish, before you said when Councillor Wilson was asking about things that get snuck in, we know they're not snuck in because they're in the budget, and you said that when they get approved in the budget, that basically you take it as it's all good to go. So I guess what we're trying to clarify is if we're not okay with the budget, what do we do? How do we get the information to make sure the right number is provided?
Yes. So at the conclusion of the budget process, you need to be satisfied that you understand the work that's in there and that the budget is adequately provided for by the conclusion of the process. what we hadn't intended today on day one was to have budget managers in to explain the technical detail of every activity budget and every project. That hadn't been our intent.
Yeah.
So we've dived to a place that wasn't our expectation for today. By the time you complete the budget process, you need to have whatever information you need to be satisfied that it is accurate, appropriate and duly provided for.
Okay,
So-
so but for the purposes of today, let's not comment on projects, make a note of them and make sure that you guys know exactly what we want to know.
Or highlight to us that this will be one where you'll need more information, and we can be geared to have the right people in the room for that conversation.
Okay.
We are utterly motivated to give you whatever you need to be satisfied to approve the final version of this budget. But it hadn't been our intention to have all the budget managers on standby today, because we wanted to get through, this is what it looks like, this is how it works, and to the point that it's been raised a couple of times, you were first looking at the budget, when you got it this morning, there wasn't time for you to drill through it and have your questions framed, so this was much more about understanding the structure and how it works and where the big levers are, where the pressure points are, not trawling through project by project.
Yeah.
But
So
in
you
the
guys
end,
would have taken the Montalto and water meters, and then we can just move on.
yeah, so we've made a note of that, the more information needed, but in the end you'll need whatever you need for all
Yeah.
things in here to be satisfied by the end of the process.
Okay, cool, thanks.
Okay, so right. So going from here, so we're just going to be looking at each group to say this is what's in it. If there are any flags, then we question those, and next week we'll have someone to come and explain it. Is that what I'm saying? Because when I looked at this, I thought we were going through page by page. So
We are for understanding, but
Yeah.
where you need more detail, then we need to circle back.
okay,
And it could be by omission. You might be expecting to see something and not see it and wonder why. So it's just to try and get a general understanding of the structure and what's included in the budget.
okay. I'm looking at you, Tony, for direction, because
Lovely. So yes, we've got Andy's busy listening. He's understanding the information that you're seeking, so that's great. I suppose the other aspect of the document is to go to page 9 and 10, and that is showing what the business case is looking like. So the business case is for 150,000 of operational funds, and that's to develop the drinking water safety plan and the source water risk management plan implementation. These are all increasing compliance requirements under the rules that we've got. You'll see that we have upgraded the business case template to make it less of a novel and hopefully an easier read by having some boxes associated with it, so it should be a faster skim, we hope.
so this $150,000, was this something that was flagged in the water services delivery plan, or is this a, sort of an addition because of new regulations?
It's a piece of work that we knew was coming, and I think possibly we had hoped that we'd better do it with internal resource.
Okay.
But this is actually looking to free up what we've currently got and let our internal resource focus on what they are and bring in some experts just to get the job done.
Councillor Wilson.
With the plans, affected parties will be consulted. So that's for the rural water supplies. It's very important they are consulted, and there's enough resources to consult them properly. What I mean is, like, so if I use the Heinz supply, 'cause I'm an affected party. If you make it big enough, you affect a lot of land. They're quite small at the moment, and if they decide to make them, instead of meters, make them kilometres, that has quite a dramatic effect.
Understand completely what you're saying.
Hamish.
Can I just clarify our intention to consult on this business case, though? I'm not reading that.
Sorry, it was probably a more, it was a question actually around the consultation of the project itself once it gets underway, rather than consulting on the need to have the business case.
I'm not asking to consult the wider public. There's a comment on page in strategic context. Water source risk management plans for each supply is only just commenced, and then it goes somewhere else. It says the intent is to talk with affected parties. Affected parties will be engaged with. And affected parties, I would say in this, if you weren't in a water sort of zone, but you're brought into one, that has quite constraining effects on what you do within that zone. So they're the ones I think we need to be very clear with.
Okay.
Councillor Ellis.
Thank you. So when we have the water people, for want of a better term, in the room, is that when we discuss this and thrash it out and make a decision, or at what time are we going to say yes or no to this 150,000?
I think you just note it for now and ask whatever questions you need when the budget manager's in the room, either as the water experts in the Water Services Committee or by calling the budget managers to a budget meeting and interrogate it to the point where you're satisfied or not. For now, just know that we are providing it and this business case is sitting inside the budget at the moment.
Tony.
And Mayor Liz, if you don't mind me circling back to the very original question of Councillor Wilson's at the start of this activity, under the overview where he questioned around the average drinking water charge in the WSDP, we have put in the wrong number. We've pulled in the 25-26 number, or 24-25 number I think it is, and it is all the numbers reconciled back to the 26-27 number of $990. 19, sorry.
Okay.
So that's where.
Okay, so are we moving now to wastewater? Is that, so we've got that noted, we will need staff to come and answer a few questions on drinking water at some stage. Yep, great. So wastewater.
Okay, so for wastewater, that's document C. Just over pages. So from page 3, you'll see the funding approach there is 95 to 100% on targeted rates. So again, like water, if you receive the service, you pay. And there is also a fees and charge element coming into that as well. From an overview perspective, we are looking at a little bit of work in and around the CapEx in wastewater. Yep, just to do some cross-checking that's in there, but otherwise everything is looking relatively square and in line with what the Water Service Delivery Plan was indicating. Average drinking water charge is in line with what was in the WSDP, which is $637 per property. The increased costs with wastewater activity are, in a basic sense, resulting in a 1.2% increase in the total rate take, and there are 2 business cases associated with this activity as well.
So I guess with this one here, we will, again, next week or whenever, we will have staff come back to us and talk on those business cases, because I think it's quite important to understand those, even though they're clearly mapped out. Councillor Wilson.
Yes, I would agree with you. I'd like to investigate the Ocean Farm one because it's been a big one of contention, and it wasn't actually put in the long-term plan when we wanted to put in because we didn't have the information to put it in the long-term plan at the time. So now that we've obviously getting the information, it'd be good to understand it before we approve it.
Yep.
Understand?
Yep, thank you.
From a fees and charges perspective, we think that there's opportunity to lift the trade waste fees and charges above the 2.2% to reflect the fact that there are costs that are increasing that are associated with it, with the disposal of waste. So that's something that the team would be comfortable to look at if you would like us to, or we can start that ball rolling.
Is everyone happy with that, to look at that? Councillor Cameron?
So trade waste, is that where people take the old oil somewhere and you deal with it? Is it what, tell me what trade waste is. Please.
Well, that's industrial trade waste, so from a company that's delivering into our system.
So they're taking it somewhere or what?
To
Because
us,
like we get
into our waste system.
in the pharmacy, we get invoiced X amount of dollars for trade waste, but we never put anything, all our waste gets,
So the big one in front of council at the moment is the abattoir. And so rather than them disposing of it
oh,
themselves,
so they put it in the, and then what does council do with it? Just take it out to
they
the
treat it.
treat
Goes
it.
into the
Treat it with
wastewater
everything else.
system.
So it's additional.
But usually it's waste that requires additional levels of treatment. And so we have a fee to ensure that
Deal with that.
it's appropriately treated.
So it's not a volume-based thing.
Yes, it's both. Yeah.
Oh, it is.
Yeah, yeah.
So there's a formula. So various people pay various trade waste levels. Is that right? Like oil is X amount and
We
blood
can
is
produce a
X amount.
schedule for you of the trade waste charges.
Okay, thanks.
But it's the non-normal household waste. It's coming from trade,
Yeah,
businesses.
yeah, I understand that, but I just wonder how. I'll wait and see. Sue.
And the two business cases that are within the wastewater activity, one is for flow monitoring for wastewater model calibration, and the other one is for the Tynwald wastewater network targeted interventions. So that's where we think we've got stormwater getting into the Tynwald wastewater network.
Councillor Cameron.
What's the first? So when are we going to go over these business cases? Is that next week?
Yes.
Okay.
Right now, I think you just need to know there are business cases here. They've been included in the budgets. Take some time to read them.
Yep.
And then you'll have a chance to ask our activity managers the specifics.
Yeah, I think that would be the best idea. So 2 business cases for wastewater and a question around increasing the fees and charges on the trade waste disposal. So that's the things I've flagged for wastewater for next week. Okay, Councillor
Now,
Wilson.
isn't the Ocean Farm, part of them?
Yes, a lot of money.
It's a lot of, I mean, we haven't, I didn't think we'd landed on what we were going to do. We'd sort of put numbers around, but we hadn't actually landed on what we were going to do with Ocean Farm because there's still a lot of conjecture around what, and it's sort of almost it's a business case because that tells you this is what we're going to do and this is what it's going to cost, not just chuck 5 million and say, well, here we go. Well,
No, but we have to provide something in the budget to enable you to do something at all. So yes, you need to be satisfied with the final work on that, and we've gone through quite an amount of process. Again, the experts in the room will be able to explain what that money buys and whether you're satisfied with that. But for the purpose of creating a budget, we've had to signal.
is it not a business case though to spend that sort of money?
You can put any term on it you like. We could dress it up as a business case, or it's just a project. It's work that needs to be done. We know we have some compliance issues. We've talked about it endlessly. We just have to do the right thing by that disposal system. And
So who approves that 5 million expenditure?
Council.
Council does.
We will.
So you can't just approve 5 million without knowing what you're going to spend it on. And you can't
we're
just
not
say Ocean
asking
Farm.
we're not asking you to approve the expenditure ahead of understanding the project. We're showing you that we have resource in the budget for that work. We're not asking you to approve that budget today. There is reference to it in the Water Services Delivery Plan.
Okay, have we got you've got all that for the wastewater will go into stormwater? Are we ready for that? So just an overview. Thank you, Tony.
I'm grabbing that one.
Oh, sorry, Helen.
It's all right.
Sharing the
Sharing the love.
love, yep.
So stormwater is the only one in the water services plan where the rate requirement doesn't align with the water services plan. So we are proposing additional rate revenue. I'm just trying to find the numbers. So $200,000 additional rate revenue. That is essentially for two things in there. So there's an additional $100,000 for expenditure that was previously being captured incorrectly in the wastewater activity that actually rightfully belongs in stormwater. That was informed by Andy. Andy would be able to give you the exact detail, but he has correctly budgeted that in the stormwater activity now, and that wasn't in the water services delivery plan. And there's also around about $100,000 additional for the direct distributed costs over and above what was budgeted in the water services delivery plan. And the majority of that portion is we have got a dedicated resource now in that stormwater activity. Whilst the resource was put into the water services delivery plan, it was being spread across water, wastewater and stormwater. And stormwater, being the smaller cousin of the three, wasn't capturing the whole amount of that resource because it wasn't known at the time that it was going to be a whole stormwater resource. So that explains the difference in the rate requirement for the activity.
I'll just go to, sorry, Councillor Cameron's
Thank you.
question.
So this West Street trunk stormwater, is that on the West Street, on the main highway? And that's presumably stormwater from the road and going off into the side channels of the road, is that correct? Have I got that right?
I wouldn't like to guess on where its particular water is. That's the location of the stormwater.
So doesn't NZTA need to help us with the cost of that, isn't it? It's on there.
Stormwater's on us.
Well, that's a bit of a pushback and could go and ask the mission to local government.
We've been talking about this project, I think, for 10 years.
I'm not denying that, but I'm just thinking, if it's on the main drag and it's mainly off the road, because there'll be channels off the road, lands on the road, goes to the side.
Councillor Ellis?
Thank you. I'm just flagging I'll be asking a question when they're in front of us around the stormwater with us exiting our stock water races and the impact they may have on some of our local roads. We were going to do some work around that, or whether we're just going to pass the can to ECAN. So I will be asking a question around that when that.
Yep.
So to offset some of those additional operational costs, what we have done is not funded any depreciation in the stormwater activity. We saw the graph earlier on in terms of the renewals, and the renewals, I think they're beyond year 10. And talking to the experts in that area, they felt it was a fair call not to be funding depreciation at the moment because it would just be sitting aside in a reserve, and we will actually have a small portion in the reserve at the end of this financial year. We would look to start building that depreciation at a slower rate as we move forward. So that is one variance from the water services delivery plan, which only budgeted a small amount, I think around about 200,000.
And there's no business cases for
No.
this? And is there an opportunity to increase fees and charges anymore, or what? Has it come through from the,
The fees and charges are only $500. So
okay.
Question.
Yeah.
Right. The deferring the West Street one, 'cause it's a huge amount of money, 5 million. If we've deferred it out of here, when have we deferred it to?
So we're doing some design and planning work in this year, and the work itself the following year.
Because if we've deferred it, we're not charging depreciation. So is it a lump that's we're just pushing down the road to the next, next annual plan to find money for it for, or is it?
It'll delay the borrowing, yeah.
it's level of service, so it's funded through debt. It was always planned to be funded through debt, not renewals.
We just know that if we provided for it as in next year, it would simply, the physical work is unable to be done in that period.
Yeah,
so
I
it makes
understand
more
that.
sense to.
It's $5 million
realistic.
worth of work, which it must be some. It can't be all new stuff because this doesn't flood there at the moment, so it must be doing something. So
Yeah, it's good questions for the team.
Yep. Okay, so next week we'll come back to stormwater and with that question on the deferred cost. that $5 million. Right. Are we good to go to transportation?
Shall we do stop
Oh,
water?
stop water, sorry. Oh.
Big picture here with Stockwater is there is a slight reduction in the operating expenditure, mainly driven by a reduction in maintenance costs in line with the exit of parts of the Stockwater schemes. So that's a subsequent, it flows through into the reduction in the operating income. A slight decrease in the total rate take as well. There's no capex, no fees and charges, and no business cases.
Councillor Wilson.
This falls in line with the Stockwater exit plan, this funding, because we're actually out of it by the end of 2027. So this I know this budget 26-27. So if the Stockwater exit committee does its job, at the end of that time, this will be significantly reduced. Is that a fair comment?
Yes.
So there is urgency in us to get on and exit the stock, like we've said. So we've done one, and we're looking to do more, which will help reduce our cost.
Councillor Ellis.
At what stage do we discuss how we're going to fund those races that need to be left open for ecological or whatever other reason there may be? There will be some that I believe will have to stay open, which will need funding from somewhere. And maybe the person whose land it runs through may say, well, hey, maybe now you need to pay me to use my land. Even that, could be a fair and reasonable argument. But when are we going to have that discussion? Because it may, some of those races we may find sooner rather than later.
Yes, I think through the next 18 months, as the Stockwater exit working group makes recommendations around closure and alternative arrangements, we might expect council to start understanding any residual service that's not Stockwater but is something else.
We've also highlighted it as a revenue and financing policy conversation
Okay.
as part of previous conversations we've had.
Councillor Wilson.
I can endorse that, because as of September we're closing or exiting the Pudding Hill section, and part of that recommendation to council was that we look at the Mount Harding Pudding Hill intake, and I'm very keen to advance that as quickly as possible.
Okay. Thank you. So there's no business cases on that, but I guess if in between now and next Tuesday, if anyone had any questions, we would have a staff member on hand to answer those budget questions in detail. Yeah.
Could I ask that we have information on how many Stockwater users will be left in this year, so that because this one's an unusual one, because the rating base is actually reducing as we go, and even with our forced closures or forced exit, there will be some exits through people just going the old process as it was. So I'd just be interested to understand what the rating base will be for next year.
Yes, and so I think what we need to do is give you the assumptions we've made for this budget, because the closure time frame, the individual intake by intake work isn't necessarily always going to fit nicely with budget approval timeframes. Like some of these closures will be after we've set the budget. So what we can let you know is the assumptions we've made, and you'll be satisfied that those are reasonably based.
Thank you. Move to transportation. Yep. Is that yours, Gordon? Here we
That's
go.
mine. Finally. Okay, so for transport, essentially for the budget for 26-27, we've taken the approach of looking at the 3-year NZTA's funding program across the board, and essentially we've then said what's left after year 1 and 2 is the budget we've allocated for year 3. In addition to that, we've also added on the cost associated with the bridge, which flows through this activity as well, and that's the $20 million that essentially has been mentioned a couple of times before. In addition to that, this bucket also includes the $3 million of unsubsidised funding that the council elects to allocate every year. So that has been budgeted in full within these numbers here. And that is as in line with prior years eligible to be allocated. There are currently no business cases within this overall activity, and under 4.1 operating expenditure, we've given you a summary of the funding that we get across the 3 years, as well as the spend of how it's been spent for 25-26, 26-20, and 26-27, just to give you the context of why it drops down a little bit, noting that year 3 of the funds is a lot less due to the fact we spent more of them earlier on in the equation, and therefore this is the remainder at the end.
Councillor Wilson.
Some of that reduction in costs is also due to the very good tendering we got through in the last 2 years. We've had, the prices we've been receiving for some of the tenders on the stuff's been a lot lower than what was forecast. Is that fair to say? Because the tendering that we've done in the year we're in actually is a lot of it falls into next year, but doesn't it? Into this next, is that correct?
My understanding of good tendering prices is it just dictates how much we do. So the budget is the budget is the budget is the budget. If you get a great price, you do a little bit more, a little bit less to make the money go as far as you can. So you don't save money per se against the budget. You get as much work as you can done for that money. So the better the pricing, the more work we can do.
And so the overall, we're not actually, this is not contributing to the increase in rates at all from what our long-term plan said.
The big change here is the new road.
Yeah, but apart from the new road, but the new road is actually, is because of the cost savings amount as well, or the reduction in spend compared to long-term plan in there, there's actually it's not the big push up in rates from roading is not as big as we thought it was going to be.
But if you think about the long-term plan was adopted before the NZTA had approved our 3-year program, and the long-term plan included an allocation of low cost, low risk. And when that was, when we received the very minimal amount of low cost, low risk after the LTP was adopted, that's when council decided to create the unsubsidised roading money with the council share of the request for the low cost, low risk. So again, the long-term plan is a little bit out of date because it had to, by the way the timing works, be adopted before we had the 3-year approved program. So it's hard to compare it to the long-term plan, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, but it's not contributing to the increase in rates. Roading is not. Apart from the new road, and the new road is not as bad as what we first thought in the year we're going into, because we're only doing a wee bit of it, and so it's only 500,000, I think, is it the number that we've put in there for the cost of the new road. And our overall roading bill has gone up by, for the annual plan compared to the long-term plan, it's gone down. Is that right?
I'm just a bit confused.
Gordon, you look like you're ready to answer that.
The overall program has gone down because this is the remainder of what's available for the entire NZTA 3-year program. The cost associated with the bridge has been included, and that's a brand new cost on top of what was there before. So you do have a decrease essentially for the NZTA program year 3 component, and then you have another increase for the roading, but overall it is a slight decrease. Sorry, slight increase.
Councillor Ellis.
Thank you. I just want to check for clarification that 2 new councillors are here. Understand the $3 million of unsubsidised roading, so it's a direct ratepayers cost of $3 million, and it's not loan funded, so it is so it's 6% of the rates is that unsubsidised money. But the reason we do it is when we do our customer satisfaction, it's always roading where we get hammered. So we don't believe we're funded enough by NZTA to maintain our roads, let alone improve them. So to try and help that situation, we put this $3 million of unsubsidised roading in. but it is a direct cost to the ratepayers.
Hamish?
That is true, and we get that. Therefore, we get that extra work done on the roading network. It is also because we have that provision. When, as happened this year, NZTA has extra funds and offers us an extension of our subsidised program, we're able to say yes because we can meet our share from this unsubsidised budget. Otherwise, if we got offered extra subsidy, you don't just get that for free. You still have to find your share, which is about 49%. So the only reason we can say yes with any confidence is because we've got the unsubsidised allocation sitting there to match the new offer.
Just with
Councillor
that,
Ellis?
weirdly, roading covers, well, footpaths obviously as well, but street lights and things like that, which is a bit weird, but.
Okay, so there's no business cases.
That's correct, yes,
Yep.
the business cases for the transport activity.
Okay. Councillor Wilson?
So within the roading bit, we would include before we can approve this, we would have to improve the bridge. We've talked about what the costs are just to because that's a big
Road
part.
to the bridge, you mean?
Well, the road to the bridge, we have, before we can say, yes, we're happy with this budget, we'd need to include that because that's a massive area of uncertainty.
Yes, what we're doing at this stage of the budget process is to create the provision for you to have.
I'm waving a flag in that department.
Oh, yeah.
But we haven't yet finalised the approval process for the bridge and new road.
Okay. So that's to come. Right. Waste reduction and recycling. You ready to move on to that?
Okay, so for waste reduction and recovery, as has been alluded to earlier in today's session, this does have a bigger contribution to rates than was previously anticipated. This activity includes the introduction of FOGO, so the new food scheme, the waste scheme, that's coming into place, and then it also has an aspect of cost increases that are being felt in the current financial year. In terms of the overall capital expenditure for this one, there is a high cost coming through as a result of the required infrastructure at the Resource Recovery Park for the introduction of FOGO, and then also the purchase of the bins required for the FOGO program.
So we received a subsidy for that, didn't we? So is that,
Yeah,
where do we see that?
So we have received a subsidy for this. You can see it in, just scrolling down, sorry, it's in the financials on page 9. You'll see that there is a line where it says other receipts, and there's, actually no, sorry, my apologies, I'll go back a second. The funding that we received, the subsidy itself, we received that in the current financial year, so
okay.
we've actually already received the funding. You can, however, see that in terms of the purchase of the bins, you can see that coming through further down the page, and under capital income, you can see that we've got the funding there of 589, and then there's also the residual required, which covers the bin purchases and the infrastructure requirements.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Cameron?
Can you just help me see that? I can't, good, the bins were paid for
So-
organic waste bins, weren't they? We got a subsidy to cover the purchase of the bins.
Yeah, so that was in this financial year.
So why are we buying more organic bins?
So we haven't yet purchased the bins. We don't need the bins until the introduction of the scheme.
So we've kept the money aside to buy the bins?
That is correct, yes, it's currently on the balance sheet.
Councillor Wilson? Sorry.
I'd like a breakdown of the internal income and recovery number, especially when it comes through to solid waste management, because it's always been you've got solid waste collection, which is great, that's collecting the rubbish in the streets, but then that, when you pay for that, you're actually paying for the rubbish to be disposed of. And I see that hasn't actually increased very much. The recovery has only gone up to annual plan of 1.35, up from an annual plan last year of 1.2 839 internal recovery. But if I look at the general rate, it's gone from 835 to 1.7. So that means the general ratepayer is paying more for solid waste management than the actual, anybody who's on door pickup is paying less for their solid waste management than the general ratepayer is. I know the general rate's paid by everybody, but it seems a wrong sort of way a bit. All the rubbish from Ashburton is collected and sent to the dump and disposed of, but it's costing everybody else more money. So I'm just very interested in a breakdown of how that's been worked out. That's what.
Acknowledge the question. We'll do some work on that.
Gordon?
Yeah, so the recovery that you can see is coming through is 35% is a fixed amount of the contract value. You'd expect it to be a little bit higher than what's currently in there, but as a result of the introduction of the FOGO program, we are anticipating a 15% decrease, about a 15% decrease in terms of the volume of waste going across the weighbridge. As a result of that, it slightly decreases what we'd expect to see coming through.
Okay. Councillor Ellis?
Thank you. Just under fees and charges, and I see we're being asked to maybe consider more than the 2.2 there, and you've used an example of an additional 1.1 million revenue if we go above, but it can't see where it says how much above that to get that 1.15.
What's showing in the 26-27 column is what the team have proposed that they could lift the fees and charges to get the extra.
So it just doesn't say what percentage that is, it's just an increase of some kind.
It is, but if you look on page 6, where the fees and charges schedule is, you'll see the 26-27 column is showing a variable range of increases. Yeah. Rather than a blanket approach, they went through and looked at the different types of fees and charges and suggested the changes where they thought it was appropriate.
Okay, so there's no business cases for
sorry.
this one. Sorry, Russell.
Just on that, so has that assumption been made in this budget of that extra 1.1 million, or is that, well, so it has, that we'll approve that as is and we'll achieve that? Okay, cool.
Any other questions? I guess it would be beneficial to have someone from Solid Waste come through next week as well, just in case there are any extra questions. Right, what are we on to now? Community governance and decision making.
So this one covers the cost of democracy, so that's yourselves, the Methven Community Board and the Ashburn and former Water Zone Committee, whatever that's called, and also the cost of community grants and funding. So that's heavily recovered through rates, and you'll see probably the big reason for the increase is due to the reduction in rates contributors. So overall it does drive a higher increase in rates for this particular activity of 1.79%. There's no fees and charges or business cases for this activity, but there are some changes highlighted on the page 2 or page 4 of what's in Stella, and they cover things like the increase in allowances that have come through as a result of the Remuneration Authority changes to allowances and new allowances being included, some declines, and also a proposal to include a funding request from the Canterbury Mayoral Forum for those items listed. There's also a couple of changes for the Methven Community Board, but community grants and funding is as per LTP.
Hamish, just on the Canterbury Mayoral Forum request, so there's the 14,700 to complete a regional energy inventory, 24.5 for the regional deals proposal. do you think we're going to need those amounts in there?
No, my understanding is the Merrill Forum, their plans to do that, those two pieces of work required additional funds, and the Merrill Forum members have been wrestling with their budgets. We understand now that a number of other councils are not likely to support the request for additional funds, and that will torpedo the work in the manner in which it had been proposed. So my view now is that both those two sums can come out, and if those pieces of work are to proceed from the Merrill Forum, the challenge for that group will be to do the work within existing resources and budgets rather than having specific additional resource available.
I'm happy with that. It just sounded like a lot of the other councils were pulling their budget, so it just doesn't make sense for us to have it in. Yep. Councillor Cameron.
Just for a little bit of education, the reserve movement, can you help me understand that?
Which page are you on?
Page 7. Hold on a minute. I've got to go back to the right thing. I just was looking at the main. I'm on page 6. Reserve movements transfers to reserves 800,000. What is that? From democracy. It's under community grants and funding.
I can answer at a high level, and then the team can
High
answer
level is
the
probably
details.
all I can cope with.
Under development contributions, we charge a community infrastructure development contribution, and it lands in the community grants and funding cost centre. It has nothing to do with community grants and funding, it's just where it goes. And I'll stop.
Yep, so it's along the lines of development contributions, but it's reserve contributions. Not sure why it goes onto that cost centre either, but we've just kept the same thing for this year.
Okay.
It gets paid into a reserve, and then those reserve funds are available to fund projects. So some of those funds are being drawn on. You will see that funding from reserves in the parks and open spaces activity.
Okay. And one more question. When you go to the cover page, it's got the operating expense or the funding requirement by activity for for democracy is up 900,000, and you probably covered it, but I can't see where that is on this page. I can see, oh, well, I probably can. It's annual plan 25-26 from 3.6 to 4.5. We're getting there. I can see where we're getting it, but I don't understand how it's been spent, I suppose.
On page 5, you'll note that under the reserve movements in annual plan 25-26, there's 800,000 in there from the rates contributor. So this is where you're seeing the impact of a reduced rates contributor flowing through into this activity. And you'll note that it's coming through this activity because this is part of the UAG. UAGC. So you can see that there. Can you see it on the page?
I can see it on the page, but I don't understand the meaning. I just can't follow it.
So
We're charging you're getting, this department is not just, I'm going to go to a real basic level. If I go to the whole of council, there's $900,000 more required for the operation of democracy. Is that, we agree on that? No. Okay, thanks. Well, that's where the miss is. Thanks, Helen. Can you help me understand that?
Sure. So think about those two tables that we looked at right at the beginning, and I
Yes.
showed you where
Yeah.
we needed
With
10.2,
the
and then
contributors
if we
and stuff.
pulled out the 2% from the rates contributor. But I also said that the rates contributor was sitting in miscellaneous. It's not been dished out to the activities. So this activity doesn't have any rates contribution in it in terms of what you are seeing here.
Okay.
But it was in to the value of 800,000 last year.
Okay.
So to be able to fund it this year, we're asking for 800,000 plus any increased funding for delivering the activity.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
I'll get you to turn your light off and we'll go to Russell, thank you.
Thank you. Just wondering what cost centre, the cost related to us being a member of LGNZ. So just thought it might have been this one, but it's not showing up here, so just.
Tanya?
Through the chair, I can answer it. So it is in democracy, so it sits in the general operating expenses.
Oh, okay. So it won't be all of that figure though, will it?
No, well, so we normally pay about April, May each year. So May last year, we paid 56,000. We don't have this year's invoice yet.
So it's about 50,000.
56.
Councillor Wilson?
Can we see a breakdown of that number? Because it's a big number, and to see a breakdown of where it goes, because obviously this is a place, I'm not saying we're going to cut things, but this is a place we can understand costs, because we've been able to subsidise it in the past from investments, but this year we're struggling to do that, so we perhaps need to make sure that when we spend all this money, we are spending it correctly.
So just to clarify, you're seeking a breakdown by natural account code for this cost centre?
It falls to the question Russell asked, LGNZ fee, what is it? There'll be many others in there.
That whole cost centre then, or that one line?
Well, it's a
So a
but
breakdown of general operating costs in the democracy activity.
yes.
We
Yeah.
can come back with that. Yes.
Yeah. And just, so we've got, where did I see it? 1.157, for grants, and 770,000 has been committed, I guess, because we did that 3-year, agreement with, our agencies that we fund, but there's about 400,000 that we give out annually in general grants, which I guess is just under 1%. So, is this one place that we could cut? Not saying we would, because I think we would have to balance it out on the social impact of our district as well.
This is 1.257.
So under community grants and funding,
Yeah.
there's 1.157 on page 4, just under the key changes, right at the bottom there. I mean, I know our grants are oversubscribed and a lot of people rely on them to get things done, but just sort of flagging that. And the Methven Community Board, so they are asking for their discretionary grant to go up to 40 grand, because they are splitting the allocation of it into 4 times a year, so want to make it $10,000 each time-ish, yeah. But that comes out of a targeted rate that for Methven.
Board, yeah, correct, absolutely correct, Millers. And the board also felt that with the expansion of their boundary, to now pick up a wider part of Methven, that the cost was probably going to be relatively negligible on the household that are being charged that rate up there.
Okay, so for governance, we'll come back with that breakdown of general operating costs. Everyone ready to move along to ED and commercial activities? Righto. Helen.
Yep. This activity's got quite a lot in it because it's got activities for each of the commercial property areas as well. But just looking at the main highlights probably, so in terms of other receipts For 2026, we had a gain on sale coming through there at 4.975 million, which makes the revenue look artificially high. So gain on sale is a non-cash entry that we wouldn't normally see coming through. So we will actually remove that line from the reporting going forward, with it being non-cash, because it doesn't impact on the rates requirement.
It's on page 3.
Yep.
Overview.
We also haven't budgeted any sales revenue for the Ashburton Business Estate. That doesn't preclude that we wouldn't still sell something, obviously with council approval, but at this stage we're not budgeting anything, just reflecting there isn't really any interest in the market at the moment. We have one business case, which is for an asset management system. It's proposed that the asset management system is funded from the property reserve. This system would load all of our asset data, essentially property data plus other asset data into the system to make managing that data, knowing what renewals, what the plans are going forward. It would also largely support the audit process. So we very much noticed last year with questions that were being raised by the auditors that we didn't have the information in one place. We're using spreadsheets and paper documents at the moment, so that would really support the year-end audit process and being accountable to Audit New Zealand. In terms of the rates funding for the activities, the ones that are rates funded essentially are economic development and the promotion activities. Economic development is looking at very much the same rate requirement, whereas promotion has a small rates decrease of around $9,000. This activity also contains the proposal to draw down $560,000 from the Glasgow Lease Cost Centre to support the rate requirement overall. So that's included in here, which reflects sort of the negative rate requirement coming through. In the CapEx side of things, in the LTP, we had the demolition of Balmoral Hall budgeted in this activity as CapEx. That is still included in here, but it has been correctly reclassified to operational expense. So whilst it's funded through property reserve, the correct treatment is to code that to OPEX. I think those are probably the main touch points, but happy to answer any questions.
Councillor Cameron.
I just have a question for Hamish, or I have a couple of questions, but one for Hamish is, will we have somebody from property here when we go over them individually so we can see reasonably, is it a reasonable expectation to have zero sales at the, to budget for zero sales at the industrial estate?
Yes, if you would like those budget managers, then we will be able to provide that.
Thank you. And my next question probably is for you, please, Helen. The economic development and commercial activities, now I've probably got all my little breakdowns misaligned, but we've got in there reduction of consultancy fees with economic development, and I'm trying to go up and down the screen, I won't bother, of about 118,000, have I got that right? So economic development, 161,000. Decrease in contracts, consultancy and finance costs. Is that because, like, what finance costs did economic development actually have? I beg your pardon, Helen, it's on page 4, 4.4.
Just going there. There's a lot of pages in this one. Economic development. Contracts, consultancy, finance. Let me just jump to the page.
The airport's 4.3, economic development, forestry 4.2. I can wait if you want to.
So the finance cost is tied up with the Fairfield Freight Hub. So that's just sitting at a high level in property. We've got to push that down in there. So we have got that in there, but we're showing it at property rather than in this particular activity.
So we can discuss that when we have someone from property next time. And the decrease in contracts of consultancy, is consultancy under economic development, is that when you were doing the advertisements and take a break sort of stuff, or what is the consultancy?
I'll look to Ian for that one.
That would be in the events, which is different. I'll have to defer if you won't mind.
Okay,
I
we'll
just
wait
haven't
till
got to
next
the
time,
budget
there's
at
no
this point.
panic.
Yeah.
Okay. And obviously we're waiting for the forestry review at some stage to go into detail on that. That presumably will not be here, I anticipate, by next week.
No.
No, so, yeah,
It is in the diary though, I think, for March, isn't it?
March.
Hamish?
I wonder if we could perhaps though follow up the question around the financing costs for the Fairfield Freight Hub, because I suspect that that knowledge will be more likely to be in the room now than within the property team. So that one we may be able to answer now.
Yep, so we've got that one sitting in commercial property at the moment rather than economic development. So that's the interest costs associated with the $3 million loan for the Fairfield Freight Hub. So it is included in the overall budget, but it's just captured in the wrong activity at the moment because we've been working at a higher level.
Councillor Hooper?
Thank you. I was just going to ask, the airport, are we getting a report at some stage soon on that sort of being a self-run operation?
Yes, that report is
The workshop,
in process.
workshop planned in March, I think.
In March, okay.
Thanks, Mark.
So the demolition of Balmoral Hall doesn't affect our rates, is that correct? Now that,
That's
Yeah.
correct.
okay. So no saving by deferring that. And I see the fees and charges for event applications, so there's a 200, so there's a new fee, less than 200 attendees, is that free? And then if it's 200 to 500, then there's the original cost. Yep. Good. Filming permits, how often do we get a request? Ian, you might be able to answer this, for filming permits.
At the present, very, very rarely, but it is something where there has been interest expressed. Obviously, in the past, we've had things like Lord of the Rings in the district, which have had quite significant impacts. It's a precautionary step for something that might just come in at reasonably short notice for us, but there haven't been any in practice in the recent past.
So the last film that was filmed here, that Bookworm film a couple of years ago, that they would have had to apply for a permit and...
Yes, it very much depends on how much disruption it's going to cause, whether they're closing roads and all those kind of things.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Cameron?
So the high fee and major impact, high impact, major impact, that's the road closures and stuff, is it? The cost associated with that, it's a new fee? Like we've got a fee of $1,000
yes,
for a
it is,
high
yes.
impact fee, that's if we have to close East Street or something, is it?
Yeah, that's correct.
And is that cost recovery or is that actually a fee?
That's a fee.
So not cost recovery?
No. Oh, sorry, how do you mean cost recovery?
Well, is that what it costs us to put the road closure in? That's what I mean by the
No,
time
this
you
is
pay
for administrative support for all the council functions that are associated with operating an event of that type to coordinate the council's activities.
Councillor Ellis?
Thank you. Probably can't answer this question, but the Walnut Avenue Pavilion, $27 an hour, is that for that whole pavilion? Because that seems very cheap, because it's quite a facility. But,
I'd have to come back to you on that, I'm
Yep.
not sure.
okay, thank you. And secondly, we've got all the fees and charges for the lay-by at the domain. Does that come under property, or is it under the domain when people book that for selling things?
That would be a mobile.
Well, we
shop.
have al fresco dining.
Oh, yep.
Yeah, so I don't know where it fits.
I think it probably sits under the hawkers licenses, but I can
Ah,
follow that
yes.
through too.
Yeah. So
Probably does.
with the hawkers licenses, are you saying if they've got a hawkers license, they can actually go there free of charge? Is that, or will there still be a fee?
I'm not sure.
Yeah. If we could find, because now we're using our new booking system for that area, there should be a fee. And to be fair, there are businesses that go and operate there that are in direct competition with other businesses that are leasing buildings in town too, which, yeah.
Ian looks like he's got the answer to that.
Yeah, so for the domain lay-by, there are it's permitted sites. So that's an area that has actually been allowed to be used by I think up to 3 mobile vendors. There is still a separate requirement for vendors to be registered into and to be certified before they can operate. So it's 2 slightly different things.
Okay.
Can we have that discussion, please, around whether that should be free or not?
Yeah, I think the suggestion is should there be a rental charge
Yeah.
on top of the hawker's licence?
Yeah.
So, sorry, just to clarify, there is an existing mobile shop
Yeah.
charge, but it's in section 9 of the fees and charges. So it's where the hawker's license sits.
But I think for clarification, does the hawker's licence allow people to park in any of the assigned spaces that allow mobile sellers free of charge?
No, they have to book through the booking system.
But
it's,
is there a
it's not
charge
under this economic development and commercial activities, it's under another regulatory services, I'm guessing, but you do have to book, yeah. Okay, so we will need some extra information back on property. Economic development and commercial activities. Everyone happy to move to community services? Okay, who's up on this one? Mark.
So this one just covers the 5 activities, so community safety, elderly persons, memorial halls, public conveniences and reserves and campgrounds. Overall, it's a good news story, I think, for this one. There's a reduction in operating expenditure for a number of reasons, mainly due to less depreciation and insurance costs. So that drives a lower rates increase based on this activity. There is a number of sort of reasons there for why that's changing across the activities on page 4 and 5, which set out the detail. There's a few capital projects in here, mainly to do with public conveniences and the ongoing refurbishment of elderly housing units, which is an annual budget.
Can I ask a question, Mia?
Yep, go.
So this comes through the property as well, though, doesn't it? Community services, is that right? Like elderly persons housing's under property, isn't it? Memorial halls, public conveniences, and that, or is that its own?
If you've got questions, this is where you're seeing them in terms of the budget. Elderly persons housing is managed by property, yes.
Councillor Ellis,
I'm
sorry.
going to sort of half answer my own question from before. Looking at these other halls and their fees, the Domain Pavilion's exceptionally cheap when you compare to these other community halls who are charging more per hour. So, and then there's an extra charge for using the kitchen and most of them and that as well. So I think we need to definitely look at ours.
So have we got any business cases with this one? No. Oh, yes.
Yes, there is one business case associated with the Hines Domain septic system, which is included in the capital projects.
situation down at Hines on the Hines Domain is the public toilets that are located down there. The system that was installed, we are having far greater demand than what we ever anticipated down there. The Reserve Board does hook on a couple of their buildings to that, but really the primary driver is coming out of the public toilets. So we need to upgrade that system, and it is what it is, but the Reserve Board are pretty keen to get that moving along, as you could expect.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson.
This is one whole set that I'd like to revisit because it's very hard to read 18 pages, and each one is quite a big. It's almost impossible to give you feedback.
Yep.
In this time, so it's almost you're reading, but you can't make comment of any significance.
Yep. No, I agree with that. Councillor Cameron.
Public facilities, is there guidelines, national guidelines on how where public facilities need to be and what sort of carrying capacity, if you like, they need to meet, like the extraordinary expense and burden to this county? Is it like, are we over public serviced?
Tony?
I don't, it's a rising intonation, it's a question, it's not a statement. Yeah.
The council made the decision at the LTP 24 not to construct any more new public conveniences. Happy to, so the budget that came out of the LTP was to replace existing if they were part of the program, but we weren't in the game of getting into new public conveniences throughout the district because as a council we believed that we had hit what we were comfortable with. But I do accept your point that they're an ongoing cost that you end up being quite committed to. In terms of a national standard, I'd have to go and have a chat to Ian, but certainly at Hines, we just never expected that to become the location that you stopped on a road trip for. It has become a little bit, not on the same scale as Rakaia, but Rakaia has become a place that you do stop
really
when you're
big
heading
spot,
out of Christchurch, and Hines is becoming a little bit like that too. I don't think you ever drive past there and see no cars parked up at those public
Do we still get
conveniences.
TIF funding for that sort of stuff?
The funding's gone.
It's gone?
Yeah.
Because you look on the domain, we've got 3 lots of public toilets and 37 hectares. Like, I'd be surprised if Queenstown had 3 public toilets and 37 hectares.
Certainly the issue of public toilets causes much conversation in local government circles, particularly those councils that are slammed by tourism. So if you want to have a conversation about public toilets, the good people of the Mackenzie District Council will tell you about ratepayers providing facilities for tourists to use on a quite staggering scale. So we don't feel we're too bad here, and particularly the support that we got for the redevelopment at Rakaia from the TIF fund was extremely welcome a year or two ago. But there is still pressure. People do stop to use public toilets and they require maintenance, and it falls to the local ratepayers to do that.
It's a shame that TIF funding has gone because that was so helpful, wasn't it? Councillor Hooper.
I think it's just a wee correction for the Rangitata camping ground site, the seasonal 49 unpowered. I think they should be 561, not 361 for this year's budget. And what Tynwald?
Tynwald long term.
We'll have a look at that one as well.
2 adults. Oh, so that's gone from $29.50 up to $179.
I'm guessing we've got a typo on our hands too.
Yeah. And the seasonal 49 days unpowered. Yeah, it should be 561. Okay. Councillor Ellis.
Thank you. The Rakaia Gorge campground used to require ratepayer funds to help keep it going. I can't see in here where that's shown, but I just did a very quick look, obviously, so not sure.
We'll look into that one as well. Thank you.
So I guess, sorry, a question to you, Tony, that all the hall and reserve boards have gone through and are happy with the new fees. They've set them.
These are showing the blanket 2.2%
Okay.
across
Yeah.
them. We've got into a bit of a catch-22 because we're needing to get this ready for budgets, but not all boards are up and running, so we will
Right.
do that over the next month, check in. But we are setting this expectation with them that keeping them at no change is actually not negotiable, because their costs continue to increase. Power's not going down. All your basic costs are continuing to increase.
Thank you. Councillor Cameron.
Yeah, and I accept that, and I agree with that, but you're putting, if I look at Rangitata Hut powered, it's gone up 50 cents per adult per night. That seems like not a lot, given the increase of power and size.
Pop your light on, Carolyn.
I've said all I was going to say.
Okay.
Did you hear me, Tony?
I did, yep. So that'll be just how the 2.2% rolls across that, but if you had a view that you wanted to lift it further, then that could be a conversation to have.
Thank you. Councillor Ellis.
Thank you. So, use Timwood Memorial as an example, and with the new online booking system, and their floor's just been beautifully polished, and everyone will be quite precious about that for the next year or two. How do you ensure that who's booking the hall is the floor's still going to be, and the problem is if you're overly precious, then you reduce your own bookings, and I'm already assuming roller skating probably is going to be a no-no now on that floor where that was an income for them and so on.
Thank you, through the chair. You're absolutely right. So the booking system does have an approval process on it before it's accepted. So that's when a check and a balance happens around actually, are we happy to let that 16th birthday party go in knowing it's a stiletto-based event, for example. So that's where the board have that visibility through their chair and also through Anne upstairs.
Councillor Cameron.
Just a quick, just following on from that. So if people want, for example, book the Timwood Hall, there's a set of rules like no stilettos, and they take a bond. Like I think we charge a bond, but is the bond adequate if there's a whole lot of 21-year-olds dancing around in their stilettos and potentially could ruin the floor? Is a $200 bond or $150 bond? Yeah, $200. Is that adequate? I don't know. That's a conversation perhaps a committee need to have to.
It is, yes. Anne is off to have that discussion with them, just to see.
And a list of the rules so they're clearly because if I was invited to a party, a wedding at the Timwood Hall, I'd wear my fancy shoes, presumably. So I'd have to know that I'd wear my sneakers or whatever.
Yes, absolutely.
So for the community services, we've got one business case, so we probably need to see someone next week just to talk through that. Were there any other, because it kind of covers quite a few different services, so is everyone happy just with the public conveniences on that one? Or
As I said, I'll need more time to read through it because there's too much information for me to say.
Good eye.
It's just such a big.
So everyone
space.
on standby for that one. How's that? Yeah. So next we have got parks and open spaces. We'll do this one. Excuse me, and then we'll have a cup of tea. Oh, I need. Parks and open spaces.
Okay, thank you. I got this one. So as you'll see here, so within parks and open spaces, we have cemeteries falls into this category, as does the categorisation of our open spaces called rural beautification, and then urban beautification, which also includes the Ashburton Domain and Lake Hood. So the total operating expenditure in the budget is proposed to increase by $460,000 from the previous year's budget, and this is primarily driven by the business cases for Lake Hood, which you'll find attached at the end of the document. The capital expenditure is in line with what's been indicated through the LTP, and the impact of this activity on the total rate take results in a 1.76% increase at a totality perspective. When we look at fees and charges,
Where does that rate fall, Tony? Is that a general rate, or where does it?
Yes, so cemeteries falls 40 to 50% in general
I'm talking about the Lake Hood extra. If the project was approved, where does that fall?
Lakehood falls under urban beautification, so half by general rate, half by the targeted rate on Ashburton Urban and Lakehood.
And half on the general rate.
Correct, yes. The cemetery fees and charges are proposed to increase by 5% across the board instead of the 2.2. That's to get us in a better position to stay within the funding alignment of the revenue and financing policy. But the remaining fees and charges are set to increase by the 2.2%.
Councillor Ellis.
Thank you. So there's a bit of loan funding goes on within Parks and Reserve. Have we checked that things aren't eligible for like reserve contributions and those sorts of things to use up the money that we take off people for the correct purpose rather than then loan funding and...
Oh, Councillor Ellis, can I draw your attention to page 5 and 6?
Oh, okay.
I'm really excited that we can actually make this question. You'll see here on page 5 and 6 is the capital expenditure. You'll see there's a column there called funding source, and where the name reserves is sitting, that's where we're proposing that it's funded out of reserve contributions.
Third column. So again, you'll need time to have a look at those, but these are the sorts of projects that might take your attention when they burst into life, and if you've got reservations about them, then through this budget process is the time to query them. If they survive the budget process, then this is back to that conversation. We regard them as approved by council and we'll get on with the work, and then we'll find a way to alert you to the actual work starting, so the surprise in the community is minimised.
Councillor Wilson.
The reserves money, we still have to understand though that the reserve money doesn't just come from nowhere, it's actually increasing debt because the money is sitting in a bank account, and it leads to the money that you talked about with you doing quite a bit of work around the reserves. And this this reserve money that's magically turning up in here, would that not be part of that work to ensure that it is actual proper money, not money that's been revaluation reserves and all that sort of stuff?
Yes, we're still to complete that piece of work, but remembering that some of these reserves can only be spent on these things. So if we gather the money from the likes of reserve contributions, the development contributions, there is nothing else that money can be spent on. So while in gathering that money, we are saying to the people who are paying it that it will be spent on these things. So there is, to a degree, an obligation or moral obligation to make these investments to some extent and to some degree. So while the impact may be in a cash sense increased debt, the only reason you're raising this money is to spend it on these types of things. You're not raising it in order to offset debt. So just keep that in mind too.
Of the $6.751 million we spend on open spaces, I'll repeat that, 6.751, which is a colossal amount of money, unsubsidised money effectively, because it's not subsidised by anybody else, it's paid for by the ratepayers, the same as unsubsidised roading is. That money, the reserve money, all of the things we spend on reserves, anybody who builds a new house actually gets some benefit from the existing reserves. And the gardens are being improved all the time. So we need to look at that, not just saying new projects are only reserves, the maintaining and some of that, we should be considering whether the actual maintaining that is part of it, because we can't afford to keep just saying, making it bigger and better. 6.71 million. It's a colossal amount of money.
Yes, and we do ask ourselves internally, how can we make sure that we're utilising those reserves to the maximum extent possible in terms of the rules associated with those reserves. And there is healthy debate amongst staff about whether a particular project or a particular work does comply with the rules around those reserves. So that is ongoing, and I take your point, but be aware that we do ask ourselves how we can utilise and maximise the use of those reserves. So that needs to continue.
Councillor Gilkison.
Just a question around the playgrounds priority 1. You've got it in Methven, Rakaya, there's like 4 of them, and they're all the same amount. Is that's at each of those places? They will all get that amount, or is that shared?
That's at each of those locations.
Okay.
Yes.
And that information's in the LTP, what that actually priority 1 means?
Yeah, we have a playground audit that's undertaken, safety and replacement audit, so I'll get the details out of that and so you know what that actually looks like in reality. Probably something that I haven't made really clear is so the business cases for Lakehood, which are included in here, we're proposing that they're funded out of the reserve contributions.
Okay. Councillor Wilson.
Probably just further to that. So reserve contributions, those rules are set in the district plan, am I correct there? How that money can be spent? Where are those rules spent? Because obviously you work under the rules, but we're supposed to be the ones that can change the rules somehow. So therefore, how could we change the rules?
So the district plan contains the rules about how reserve contributions can be spent, and at the moment it's very difficult to change the district plan because of the way that the RM reform is going through. The process would generally be to do a plan change to the district plan, but and possibly with the way things, the transition's happening and the speed that it's going, then there will be that chance to do it. But just for now, it's incredibly tricky to do.
Councillor Ellis.
Thank you. I'm just trying to get my head round fees and charges and who pays what. So I'm thinking Argyle Park and football use that, for their football season, and I'm not sure what size that is that they pay, so they might pay 260 or 400 for. Does that include the changing rooms and the toilets and everything that are up there, or what? I'd like a better understanding, because for a whole season, it just seems ridiculously cheap. And then Tech have a building on the domain that I don't know if they pay anything to have that there. There's the cricket nets there that are there also. There's a lot I don't understand around the fees and charges, and I'd like a better understanding, because I don't think there's a lot of fairity because it's on council ground as opposed to those sports organisations who have to look after themselves, if you like, because they're not lucky enough to be on council ground. So, yeah.
Thank you, and you've raised a conversation that Ian and I are having around understanding how that works. There's lease arrangements, there's licence to occupy arrangements. We're just trying to understand who's got what, where, and how that works is underway.
Do we have a policy, a domain users policy or a playground users policy or something? Or do we...
Yeah, there is, and that's currently under review.
Yeah, I thought
so it's taking a little bit longer because of the sort of interplay with reserve management plans and how that all fits in as part of the mix. So we're just sort of working through that. It's taking a little bit more time than anticipated.
Yeah, Hamish?
And it will be a complicated, big and contentious piece of work, because there will be arrangements that might look different for different groups, but they will have been built up over a long period of time by contributions made that were different at the time by different groups to put something in or take something out or to do the operating. So a very complicated piece of work which will have high community interest.
Councillor Cameron?
I just wanted just seeking a bit of clarification. The income for parks and open spaces from rates and fees and everything else is 6.75 million. Is that correct? And their expenditure is 7.018 million. Is that right? As a group as a whole?
Just searching for the page. Hang on.
Is this on the main page? Just the whole group? It's just. Well, that's what it says. I don't know. So we're operating in a deficit, and the surpluses got brackets around it now as opposed to the deficit. But we're operating at a deficit that I would consider of 267 million. Is 267,000? Is that correct?
So that, if you look further down at the bottom under the reserve movements, you can see that there's unfunded depreciation coming through. So that essentially brings down the expense or the cash expense associated.
But it's not really bringing down. We're still spending that money. And we're still earning that money.
Depreciation is not a cash cost, remember?
So the
depreciation's in there at 626,000.
Yeah.
It's the
that-
book
okay.
entry component, whereas the difference between that and the unfunded depreciation at the bottom
Sure.
is the actual cash that we're putting aside. So roughly.
So they marry up, like the cost, the income and the outgoings equal each other, presumably.
When you factor in the 329 for the unfunded depreciation, loosely speaking, is a small surplus, yes.
Yeah. Well, isn't that how we rate? We rate for the cost of the event, the cost of the activity?
Yes.
Yeah. So they should marry up. So it should be equal, more thereabouts, plus or minus $10 or something.
But just the whole conversation about depreciation was
I understand that. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so have we got 2 or 3 business cases with this one? 2 for Lake Hood? Just 2? Yeah. Pardon? I haven't gone that far ahead to see what the costs are. I was just double checking. So we definitely need open spaces and to go through that. Councillor Ellis, and then we'll go for a break.
Originally, there was a business plan for a new staff member to look after Lakewood with all that consenting, but I see here, I'm just very quickly looking at it, is it more around consultancy now and we're not looking at employing someone because keep going
Keep
down,
going down.
but wait, there's more.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think that's something that we can talk about next week. Yeah. Yeah. Councillor Gilkinson.
Can you just remind me, because I know that you've talked around where salaries and wages go for each of these. Personnel costs, internal charges, overheads, how did that come out in the end?
Cool. So if we go back to page 10, we're looking at the group level. You'll see a line under operating expenditure called the direct distributed costs. For parks and open spaces, there's a parks admin account, which is where all the people costs sit, and then that rolls through all the respective activities underneath that. And I'm looking at Gordon to hope I've got that
Like
right.
which page 10 am I looking at?
Sorry.
My page 10 or your page 10?
Your page 10. It's called,
Which is page 8 at the bottom. It says 8 at the bottom.
oh,
It
sorry.
says 9 at the bottom.
We've got our page 10, it's got direct distributed costs of 3.
Oh, okay, yeah, I see it. Direct distributed costs. So that's it.
It's the people part of the parks and
Yep.
open spaces. And then below that, just to complicate it further, is the internal charges and overheads, and that's the other part running through.
Okay, cool. Thanks for the reminder.
Councillor Wilson.
Has there been any thought put to, obviously we're doing quite a bit of work down at Lakewood at the moment with all the containers in there doing all this stuff. Given if one of them works really well, there's going to be immense pressure on councillors to do something. But the business case is only 150 grand. It's chicken feed. It's not even going to, you know what I mean? We're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars and how we fund that. And I can see us being faced with something in about November next year, or this year even. Something's worked really well. We need to fund it. We need to get on and do it. And there'll be a separate business case brought to us. So I'm just concerned that, has there been any thought around that? Because obviously if there's nothing in the budget, we'll be saying, nothing happening. So we need to be making that call a bit now as to contingency, I'd put it down as, that we're not prepared, we're not funding at all.
Hamish.
I think we're signalling via the $150,000 that there is something in the budget. If that was inadequate or significantly inadequate, then we will come to you with a specific case for resource outside budget. So from time to time, council will be well aware that we do come to you where something isn't contemplated in the budget and we feel is worthy of consideration. So if not 150, then what? And if it's not adequate, then we would need to come to you with a specific request, which you will either agree to or not.
Tanya.
Hamish probably covered it in detail, but I was just going to say that Lakehood's obviously quite a complex structure and a beast in itself. There's a number of aspects that we're looking at in terms of water quality improvements. The 150,000 is purely just for the algal control products that we're currently trialling. So we've got a 3-month trial started yesterday, and that we're hoping to have some success out of, and then we'll refine that amount as we go. But we wanted to put something in there, so there's something in the budget, and those figures are based on the numbers we receive from the product suppliers for as part of the expressions of interest for the trials. The rest of the work, which we're really talking about infrastructure changes, that's not in the budget because that would need a separate business case, but there is provision in the budget in this business case for some feasibility work and some expert advice that we need to look at particularly the intake and the outlets to understand what we need to do going forward. Before we come back to you requesting money for that any infrastructure changes.
I'd just like to flag that I'd like included in that how these costs are rated for, be included in that, because obviously at the moment it's rated through general rate and through Ashburton amenity, and I'm sure the good people of Hampstead would say, well, why are we paying for those rich people that live at Lakewood? Whether the poor people at Lakewood, I don't know which way it rounds, but I think that needs to be included if we're looking to spend a lot of money to improve the outlook from the people that live at Lakewood. Sure, there is a community value in it, but there is also, you would have to admit, there's a slightly bigger benefit to the people that live on the lake than the people that don't. And currently they're only paying for it through their rating measurement, through the value of their property.
So I understand the question, covered by your revenue and financing policy. So the question of how any initiative should be paid is fairly addressed by that policy, and certainly we would regard, and I think Council has previously regarded Lakehood as a district, indeed a regional asset of great value to a very wide range of people. So it isn't all about those who happen to live there, in the same way that we maintain other assets, and you can think of the Domain or anything else. It's not all about being maintained just so the people who live next to it get benefit. It's for everyone to enjoy, and Lakehood is regarded in that same light. If Council comes to a different view, then you obviously is ultimately your decision, but it would be addressed via the revenue and financing policy, which we've signalled would be is more a long-term plan issue than for the annual plan. And if we were to institute a revenue and finance policy review as part of this annual plan, that's a game changer in terms of work and approach and things that we would need to do for this annual plan. So we would probably advise you to leave such considerations to the annual, the LTP process when you would fairly be considering the revenue and financing policy. And I think that's a comment that Tony made earlier in the day to that same effect.
I agree with you on flagging that if things are going to be brought to us to solve this, they should be in the same mouthful that, going into the long-term plan, because that'll come around very quickly. The long-term plan will, the next long-term plan will. So I don't want to get something just short of that to say we've got to do this now, we've got to fund it now, when it actually will probably fall into the first year of the next long-term plan anyway.
Okay.
And just noting the trial started yesterday for testing potential solutions to the cyanobacteria issue.
Great. Cup of tea. I think we'll have a 10-minute break. Back here at past. Thank you. week. So now we're on recreational facilities. Sorry, just opening it up. Helen, are you speaking to this
Yep.
one?
I get this one. I'll just find the right place, sorry.
So this is our three.
Yeah, rec facilities
Buildings.
has 3 activities, so the library, the museum or Rokaferia, and EA Network Centre. The funding is there, largely funded by rates. These activities did get quite a significant portion of rates contribution. So when you're looking at the pure rates increase, it does look quite large, but once you strip that out and refer back to the sheet that we looked at in the summary, you will see that the increases are very minimal across the activities. In terms of the increase for operating expenditure, just peeling those back across each of the 3 activities are actually quite small increases. Generally just the core personnel related increases in terms of inflation and KiwiSaver. There are increases for the library through Te Whare Whakatere and the push down of additional depreciation, funded depreciation, because obviously the library is part of the building and gets a reasonable share of that, so we see that coming through. The operating income, we are seeing a reduction through EA Network Centre around about 70, I'm just trying to think, it's not that much, but I just flipped to the page. Just in the fees and charges and other receipts, which is ultimately feeding through into an increased rate requirement there. So around about 50, 60k in terms of fees and charges. And that's really positioned against what the actuals for 2025 have been in terms of what can be realised. And then just a small portion of overheads is flowing through as well. So in terms of the rating impact without the rates contribution, the 3 activities themselves combined are a 0.54% rates increase, so fairly nominal.
I'll just go to a question from Councillor Cameron.
Thank you. I'm just reading a statement in italics under 4.3 EA Network Centre. Increase in general rates income, include increase in general rates by 0.93 million. What does that mean? That the ratepayer is paying more, or how does that?
So this is the impact of the rates contributor, and not all of that, but the majority of that increased rate requirement is being driven by not having the rates contributor. I think the number when we looked this morning was about $800,000. We use that as an example. No rates contributor coming through directly to this activity, but there was in 2026, so that triggers an increased rate requirement.
So what was the rates contributor in 2026? I mean, not the value, where did it come from?
Where did the rates contributor come from?
Rates contributors that other stuff, is it, income?
So that's that 4.1 million that we looked at this morning, which was the ACL dividend, the interest.
So we've just put that in. So essentially it's, okay.
Yeah, so I think the reminder here is as you take this away and go through it, go back to that, I think it was 1.4 on the very first slide, which showed when we stripped out the rates contributors, how does the activity budget compare with the year before? And that'll give you the real increase,
Yes.
rather than seeing a big increase in rates requirement here which is due largely
Yeah.
to the dividends and.
Just a
and-
way of reporting it essentially.
Because
Yeah.
that changed, and that's why
Yeah.
we said it at the start, so it would flow through all of this, yeah.
Thanks, Helen. Got it.
The CapEx is largely in line with what was put into the LTP in terms of the depreciation funding. Just jump through to that because we have done some things in there. So in Rokawhiria, we are unfunding depreciation of $100,000. We are partially funding depreciation that is coming through and going into a depreciation reserve. So whilst we are unfunding 100,000, we're also putting 36,000 into the depreciation reserve. With the library, we are using all of the funded depreciation to pay for capital expenditure, so nothing goes through into the reserve. And then when it comes to EA Networks, we are funding 279,000. We're actually making the call to put 197,000 of that into a depreciation reserve for future years. That's really acknowledging the life of the facility, not so much the building, but the plant, and the need to be looking to replace some of that in the near future. And there are no business cases for these activities.
Thank you. I think there's a wee bit to digest in that one. We'll go to regulatory services next.
Yep, so for the regulatory services activity, sorry, just bringing that up. So the regulatory services consists of the regulatory functions, so that's building regulation, district planning, emergency management and land information, and then it also includes the sub-activity of regulatory compliance, so that's alcohol licensing and gambling, venue consenting, animal control, environmental health and parking. Under the funding approach, you can see this is a combination of user pays, so fees and charges, and then also some funding coming through as a result of the general rates. In terms of the overall group, you can see that there's actually a small decrease in terms of the rates, and that's as a result of the fact that you've got the fees and charges covering a bit more of the overall one. So as an example, parking, in terms of people parking on the streets, there's lots of revenue coming through on that space. In terms of each of the individual income and expenditure, there's comments against each sub-activity, but I won't go into those because there's lots of them. Happy to take questions if anyone has any, or sort of when you digested it. In terms of business cases for this activity, there is one business case which is currently in there. That's due to additional demand that we have, and so that role would be fully covered through fees and charges, so there's no rating impact on that. But that is also in the at the back of the document for regulatory services. And then in terms of fees and charges, there's been an increase across all of 2.2%, except for a couple which have some breakouts under 5.2 on page number 7. But there is a lot of fees and charges in this space. So happy if you want to sort of go through it and come back to us with questions if you have any.
Thank you. So I think we spoke before about the hawker's licence or the mobile shop, so that comes under this.
One last thing that I would just mention is in regards to the parking activity. So as we've progressed through the 25-26 financial year, we have had additional revenue come in that space. It's been highlighted through the variance reports so far. This activity, we're expecting about a $210,000 surplus in the parking activity. As a result, we're proposing to use that to subsidise the rates.
Do you think in that space people will learn? Because it's obviously the once parking, or any infringement goes up quite a bit, you have a period where we all go, oh crikey, didn't realise that, and you get a couple of fines and you do learn. So do you think the parking stuff will actually back off a bit?
Through the chair, experience has been that no, they don't.
Great. So we've got the business case, so we'll have someone from that team come through and talk on that. And yeah, I think we just need to look through those fees and charges. Councillor Ellis?
Thank you. Just around the hawkers permit, there was a bit of talk pre-Christmas because there were a few inspections done of the farmers market and the craft market held in the car park over there. Some people only go for 2 days a year or something like that and don't really justify spending, $125 on a permit. Is it feasible we could look at a daily permit for those, who might only do it 2 or 3 times a year rather than having to buy a yearly one?
I think there is. I'm looking at page.
What page are you looking at?
30, well, so 15 on Stella.
Yeah, that's
And it has mobile
Right.
shop or stall permit, daily permit, $58.
I'm
it
looking
will
at
be.
the hawkers permit, which is just so.
Oh, okay. So instead of a mobile shop, you're talking
Yeah,
about
so
a
the
hawker's.
mobile shop would have to
daily.
have a hawker's permit as well, I assume.
Ian.
but-
Yes, through the chair, we have been looking into that. One of the ideas that we've been floating is that the more responsibility for in a market, the market's organizer being responsible primarily for the licensees that are operating under them, which would seem to make things a little bit easier. It's a matter in progress.
Okay, that's good. Councillor Wilson?
With respect to the Revenue and Finance Committee policy, we have, if I use building regulations, 10 to 20 and 80 to 90%. Where have you struck those fees within that band? Because obviously when we start off being in the middle or wherever we are, but as time goes on, we can't increase the fees, but the costs have to just fall and be paid for the generate. So where have you struck those fees in that band?
Yeah, good question. And as we were wrestling with the draft budget and contemplating the rates increase at the level it is, we asked managers to review their assumptions around non-rates revenue, and if they had been budgeting to have that revenue at the lower end of the band, then to consider implications of increasing fees and charges to the point where it will be further up into the band. So we have asked them to do that. We didn't ask that of the more, what's the right word, market-oriented discretionary facility attendance type fees, because we don't think that we think it could be counterproductive. There is a limit to what people will pay for something that they're choosing to do, entry to a swimming pool or whatever it might be. But for those where there is a more regulatory nature, we're wanting to make sure that we are not that we're on the higher side of the band to take pressure off rates. Yeah.
We've got a decision at council tomorrow around parking. So I guess that income will be included in the budget if we make that decision. It's not at the moment.
No, and again, it'll be an assessment of what will
Yeah.
the behaviour of the motorists be if that's a paid park compared to free.
Yep.
And they might all flock there and pay it, or they might park somewhere else because they don't want to pay it, and that's the judgment call in terms of budgeting as to how you forecast that behaviour.
Councillor Wilson?
Oh, sorry.
Oh, you all good? Okay, so got one business case with that, so yep, good. And now we're on to the exciting miscellaneous one, is that right?
Yeah, so for miscellaneous services, as has been mentioned earlier, this year we've separated out the directly attributable costs versus the overhead-based costs. So the miscellaneous activity includes what we refer to as the overhead-based activity. So think finance, legal, HR, policy and strategy, as an example. So this is quite a big, long one where there's lots of different cost centres in, which we've given you a breakout for each of them. This activity overall has 5 business cases that are currently going through it as well. That information is provided in the back. For this overall activity, there has been a increase in the operating expenditure overall. A lot of this is tied through into the business cases, which is sort of detailed in the information. Did people want to go through each of the individual sort of business support executive team, HR as an example, or did you want to sort of read those, digest them and come back to us, noting that there are about 12 or 13 of them?
Yeah, possibly read and digest. I was just flicking through just now noticed something. Under customer services on page 6 of Stella, there must be a typo in the operating expenditure is 0.89 million compared to 8.62 million.
Yeah, that's definitely a typo.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Yes, sorry, we haven't cut. Yeah. Thank you for pointing that out. We can
That's
definitely
all right.
change that.
And legals, obviously, a new cost centre.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Are there any business cases?
There's
five
5
of them.
business cases attached.
5 of them. Oh, did I miss that? Sorry, I
One
was
of
too
them's
busy looking at the 8 million.
A water consultant to assess council-owned self-supplied drinking water. Assess council-owned self-supplied drinking water. Not sure what that is.
So this is council-owned properties where there are water supplies to meet the new regulations. So as a provider of water, so this is not the 3 waters, this is property as a supplier of water on some of our properties. We need to assess each of those supplies to make sure that they are compliant with the regulations.
Think community halls,
Legmore Hall.
Oh, the rural ones.
so they're not on a town, they're not town supply, but we are providing water to the hirer. It's been variously talked about, through the reform process in relation to iwi Māori marae, for example, might be rural sports clubs, golf clubs, a whole host of different places where people can consume water that isn't necessarily provided and guaranteed safe through a municipal supply.
Councillor Wilson.
Wouldn't they, if on anybody on a town supply, would be covered through the town supply? So you're talking a very small amount, aren't you?
45 properties, I think, that aren't on a town supply.
Well, wouldn't it be up to if some of those properties won't all be run by, they're not all rented houses or anything, are there? Some will be industrial ones and that sort of thing. Can't we just say we're not supplying potable water at them?
I don't know if we can do that if there's a bathroom, for example, in that facility.
There's a piece of work to be done to understand better the obligation and the risks associated, the responsibility associated with these properties. We don't have the capacity to do this work easily.
What it concerns me is we're going to spend $130,000 to assess $2,500–3,000 a property, and they're going to come back and say, well, you've got to do this. There's another $500,000. When just having a program of doing stuff may be a cheaper option.
Through the chair, I think we don't know what we need to do to get them compliant, and in some instances it may be the catalyst for a broader conversation of do we continue to provide what we provide in that form, given the costs that are coming.
So all the costs for the business cases are included in the budget. So if we don't want that or we want to defer it, then that comes out. Councillor Cameron.
So with regards to the halls and the sports clubs and things that have council water that are not on town supply, or they're owned by the council but they're not on town supply. This is the proposal to employ somebody to check that out. Is that the case?
Yes.
For 45 suppliers. Is that
45
correct?
properties that are supplying water to the public that aren't on a town supply.
Oh, and so we need to have a look at those properties to see whether we can
Yes, we do.
So that,
lock
so
the doors.
there's a bit
I'll
more
go round.
information and for the business.
Yeah.
To read the business, yeah.
That's, are we going to get some more, like the list of what the property, because I'm assuming there may even be some toilets on here that have a hand basin that someone could fill a drink bottle out of, whereas I'd put a sign up and say not suitable for drinking water. Fix that one easy, but I just.
We need to.
We
look
have
at
to
this a bit
systematically do the work. For you to approve the budget, though, we see and understand that you'll need to understand
Yep.
better what the 45 properties
Yes.
smell like and what the implications of the work is. But that's what the work is.
more. Okay. Is there anything else anyone wants to talk about now under miscellaneous? Or are you happy to go? It's 44 pages, go and read it. And I think yeah, it needs, go through it.
Yeah, and it's a critical page. It's got a lot of stuff
Yeah.
in this miscellaneous.
Yeah.
And it is the overheads, but it is also the other side of the rates contributors that we've discussed on and off through the day. So it's good to piece it back to the very start of this presentation around how that non-rates revenue had traditionally been treated and is being treated slightly differently in this budget, and how it all pieces together. So there is a little bit to digest and understand for sure.
Thank you. What's next, team?
That's all the chapters done. So
Okay,
you've
yep.
seen the global overview, and you have also seen the more granular look in when you think of it through the groups of activities, and I guess you've got a lot of processing and thinking to do over the next week. We are scheduled to meet again next Tuesday, the 10th of February. It's a full day again. We'll schedule the key managers to pop in to answer your questions based on what you've seen here today, and we'll give them a bit of an indication. I think a few of them have listened into the conversation, so they understand where the questions are possibly coming from, which is going to be helpful. And then from there, once we've had that part, I guess we're really seeking next steps from yourselves in terms of, after next week's conversation with their managers, do you need more information? If you want to see things change, what would you like to see them changed? Where? What are non-negotiables that you don't want to see touched? Or you may be like, great, tick. Just putting it out there, it's always an option. Yeah. So look, next week we understand that it's going to be more of a dive in, and you better talk to the subject matter experts. But also we are still, our intention is to keep the level of information at what we've given you, unless you've got a specific request to deep dive in to understand what other LGNZ costs are, for example, like we've heard with the democracy activity.
So how do you want us to, if we have got requests for further information, how do you want that to come to you? Do you want an email to go through to Hamish? Do you want it to come to me and I collate them all and then send them through?
I think our preference would be you've got the structure of the budget. Keep linking it back to the big things that we said at the start, where the pressure is, how it's structured. Keep making those connections. Think about, you've largely accepted that this is a level of detail that is sufficient for you to approve a budget. That's the general thing that you've already agreed, but not unanimous. I think we've had one request for more information that I recall, other than budget managers explaining stuff. But in terms of really drilling into something, we want to understand the general costs in the democracy area better. So that's the one that I've got mentally noted. but you definitely want the budget managers in here to explain some of the bigger CapEx projects, some of the work that's been done, some of the thinking that's in behind a number of these things. And as we speed up through these activities, I think we can assume the budget managers will all be on standby for next week to be available
would be
for
good.
your questions. I don't think you need to pre-circulate questions to us,
Okay.
because the fear is that we'll have, 7 days of 10 people sending random emails as you think of something else. So I think get your questions ready. The budget managers will come in. Hopefully they will answer the vast bulk of your queries. If they don't, we'll have to have another go at it until you are satisfied you have enough information. And at the end of that kind of a deeper understanding, then we'll be into Tony's slides around next steps. Do you have enough? How do you feel about the overall budget? Where do we go to next in terms of rounding it out? So key session with the budget managers next week. We will have all the general managers available as well by then. So we'll be a full team to assist whatever your understanding needs to be.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Gilkerson?
I just had a quick question in terms of the process. When there's already a decision made,
Collection, you are committed to increased investment into your Three Waters network. That's largely it in terms of the commitments that we would suggest are hard and fast, and then how you deal with things like you are committed to the subsidised roading program. How you're committed to the unsubsidised roading program is your discretion, so that's one that may come up for debate. How you're committed to just about everything else is able to be debated.
thanks.
Councillor Wilson?
I'd just like to flag that I do want some real in-depth numbers on the solid waste collection and management, because they're a huge increase, and also there's a big split between general rate and urban. When you've got such big increases, there can be a huge transfer of costs between one ratepayer base and another ratepayer base, and that's one I'd really like to understand fully. And also, probably to your previous comment, I would have thought if you were going to change the unsubsidised roading, that would be a significant change in level of service, therefore that would trigger consultation with the public.
May well do, but the decision is still yours to make.
Yep.
And, okay, you show made a note of the solid waste activity needing to have deeper understanding.
Councillor Ellis?
Thank you. Just a suggestion. I think next week might be a bit longer than this week, because we did an overview today. We're doing a bit more deep diving next week. If we left Three Waters to the last thing, if we didn't finish it, the Three Waters Committee's meeting at 10 o'clock the next day. We could actually come here at 8:30 or 9 and maybe finish, and then just flow into the Three Waters Committee, so that was just a...
Yep, very cool.
That's right.
Councillor Cameron?
When we discussed the technology, Helen, you mentioned you were getting in another software system that you could input the different rates in and we'd see the impact on the rates. Can we talk about that next time? Like, will that be available to use if we say we don't want to fund that project? What's the impact on the rates? Or we want to fund that to a higher extent? What's the impact on the rates? And like to Richard's point, the unsub roading mainly falls on the general rate. The solid waste mainly on the urban dweller, if you like, sort of targeted on the urban dweller. Can we see that impact on that?
Yeah, so it is ready to go. We just need to make sure the right numbers are coming up, but we're pretty confident with what we've got.
And how would we see that on the screen, or how does that work?
We've got a few different reports we can spit out. Probably the best one would be the summary properties that you normally see, those example properties.
Like the $400,000 house, $1 million house, lower in the hot,
In terms of making changes, it probably depends on the complexity of the change, how fast we turn things around, because we use budgeting software out of Tech One, which probably takes 20 minutes to make a a basic change to push things through, all the overheads and things, which we then push through into IBIS to run the rating. So on a good day, you're probably looking about an hour to make a few changes and push it through and spit out what
So
the
you
numbers
could do
look
that
like.
during the day and
Yeah.
send it out for the next morning or
I'm
something.
hoping next Tuesday we can probably have a look at what the
'Cause I
sample
think-
properties look like.
Like to, I think to Rich's point and the point we've all made, I think it's important that we can see where the rate falls. It's not a general rate on everybody. There's a UAGC to consider, which is maxed out, and there's the general rate, and there's targeted rate. It'd be interesting for people to see, I think, especially at home, as to where that rate falls. Yeah. Thank you. I think that would be helpful.
Yeah. I'm also wondering, would councillors value at the start of the next session 10 minutes on the revenue and financing policy? Well, it's on the website. So there's no question of it not being available to you. But it is such an important driver to the way in which rates and other revenue are structured around individual activities. I'm seeing a couple of nods. We don't want to spend time on something that you don't need, but do you think that might be just 10 minutes at the start? I'm seeing a couple of nods, so maybe we could do that team as well, and just briefly run through what it is and some of those ratios, and lead into then the budget managers explaining the activity budgets. Okay.
Yeah. Tony?
Through the chair, I probably just want to manage, I might have a different expectation to perhaps what you're thinking with the activity managers coming in. I'm expecting the activity managers come in to answer questions.
Yep.
I'm not expecting them to come in and explain line by line what's going on, because I don't think that's an effective use of your time.
No, we've already agreed as a council the level of detail that you largely need, and I know there's one or two exceptions, and we respect, but I'm only hearing two of them. One is the solid waste activity, and one is the general costs in the democracy area. Those are the two that have been raised. But equally, there have been questions raised about individual projects and understanding what they're covering, particularly, I recall, in the water area. But I think as we sped up through the activities, there may well be other project explanations needed from a range of other managers. So the budget managers are here to answer questions, not to prepare more presentations and spreadsheets and things, but we've still got to keep following our nose to give councillors sufficient information.
Councillor
I
Cameron?
just want to signal we did have some questions around property as well, and the property, that would be useful. Obviously, we didn't go through the miscellaneous section in many detail, but clearly what stands out are the high cost centres, the high cost areas of. So they will presumably be the ones that will be questioned. And if I didn't realise, for example, we talked about at afternoon tea, Hamish, that people were called, what were they called in Parks and Reserves? They were called something else, human resources, which I'd call a head count of human resources. They're direct contributors, or what were they called? Yeah. So things like that, there will be,
No, we're here to help you. And today was about getting started. Today was about framing the budget, defining some terms, pointing out how it all flowed, and we've got through a pretty heavy day by doing that.
Yeah.
But all we've really done is give you greater understanding of how the budget works. What we haven't done is given you a deep understanding yet of what's in the budget. So all we've done is start a process.
Councillor Wilson?
I understand you're saying, Tony, you mentioned that the people don't have to explain in depth, but we will ask questions. I will ask them questions that around the level of service we're applying, because it's very hard, unless you can see the numbers at the bottom end, you have to assume that it's being done, and that's where we've been caught up before. We've assumed things are not going to be done or are going to be done, and because I can't see the budget numbers at a smaller level, how can I can't see that. So you can't have it both ways. You can't have it at a high level and us not, the level of responsibility gets put back onto those managers to say, are you doing, I'll use the best example, I drive past it every day, a bridge across the thing on the way halfway through Timwood, which everybody drive past and goes, no one's ever walked on it, I don't think, but it was 10 or something there. I know there was lots of things, but that's the thought pattern that if we're not can't look into it deep, we've got to get a level of trust and a level of, that's the question to be framed around that way.
100%, that's fine.
Okay, everyone happy to finish up? Yes. No, that was good. Councillor Hooper.
I was just wondering if you were thinking about having a councillor only wee 10 minutes to complete the day at all.
Can do. Yep, sure. Thank you very much for all your work and for going through that. Definitely different to how we have done our annual planning budget in the past, but I think as we sort of move through the day, lots of good content in there and lots to digest and come back next Tuesday to go through. Thank you very much.